Chapter 207. Daddy, Grandpa Goo, you don't have to be so surprised. I can't blame you, you're just too inexperienced. Ning Rongrong became even more proud when she saw the expressions of Ning Fingji, Gu Rong, and the others. Let me tell you, I'll be famous on the continent very soon. Rongrong, what are these boxes? After recovering from his shock, Ning Fingji's gaze landed on the remaining 7 square boxes on the stone table. Ning Rongrong organized her thoughts and told Ning Fingji everything that had happened to her. She then added, Although I'm a first-level agent of the All-Heaven shop, I'm only a soul elder, so I can only sell third-level boxes. Rongrong, I want these remaining 7 boxes. Ning Fingji took out 75 million gold coins from his soul tool and said, Buzz, the agent's ring glowed and devoured 75 million gold coins. Then, the 7 square boxes exploded at the same time. 6 of the boxes contained, Thank you for your patronage. There was also a square box that contained 3 translucent thumb-sized red pills. Damn! There's really something in one of the boxes. What a strong fragrance. These pills are unusual. I wonder what they're used for. The surrounding disciples' gazes all focused on the 3 red pills. Their eyes were filled with curiosity. Daddy, these red pills are called Soul Exalt pills. Whether you're a soul elder or a soul elder, consuming one will increase your soul power by 1 rank. Is it really like what you said? After hearing Ning Rongrong's introduction of the Soul Exalt pills, Ning Fingji became even more interested. You'll know once you try. Ning Rongrong raised her head. The 3 of you can have 1 each. Ning Fingji threw the 3 pills to the 3 disciples who had paid for them earlier. Thank you, Sect Master! The 3 disciples were excited. After bowing respectfully to Ning Fingji, they threw the pills into their mouths. Hiss! Once the pills entered their mouths, the 3 disciples couldn't help but gasp. A faint chill spread in their mouths, followed by a warm and pure energy that entered their bodies through their throats and into their limbs. In the span of a few breaths, the originally calm air above the stone table began to ripple. Wisps of strange, pale white energies seeped out of the air and endlessly entered the bodies of the 3 disciples. Gradually, the soul force of the 3 disciples began to fluctuate, and their auras began to rise steadily. It really leveled up. Sensing that their soul power had stabilized, the 3 disciples looked at each other with joy on their faces. Unbelievable! There's actually such a pill! Why haven't I heard of it before? F***CK. If I had known earlier, I would have bought 1 too. The surrounding disciples could clearly feel the increase in soul power of the 3 disciples who had consumed the soul power pills, and their faces were filled with disbelief. However, Ning Rongrong's soul power undulations also underwent a change before the disciples could finish their discussion. Compared to the other 3 disciples, Ning Rongrong's soul power increased much faster. Level 32, 33, 34, by the time Ning Rongrong's aura stabilized, she was already a rank 40 soul elder. She was only 1 soul ring away from becoming a soul ancestor. Rongrong, what's wrong with your cultivation? At this moment, not only were the disciples shocked, but even Ning Fingji and Gu Rong were also shocked. Ning Rongrong's soul power had increased so quickly that they couldn't react in time. I'm a first-class agent of the All-Heaven shop. The money I just earned was all used to increase my cultivation. Ning Rongrong flashed her white teeth at Ning Fingji and Gu Rong as if to say, Leveling up is just that easy. Rumble. Just as the disciples were envious, a loud explosion came from the north of the 7 Treasures glazed sect. What happened? That's the direction of Heaven Vault Mountain. Not only the disciples, but Ning Fingji and Gu Rong also looked towards Heaven Vault Mountain with furrowed brows. Let's go and take a look. Ning Fingji and Gu Rong exchanged glances and nodded in agreement. Father, I want to go too. Ning Rongrong hurriedly followed Ning Fingji and held his hand. On the other side. Plant Forest. Unlike the Great Stardow Forest, this forest was a paradise for plants. There were tens of thousands of species of plants in the forest, and many of them had already lived for tens of thousands of years. Boss, the first-class agent you're looking for this time can't be a plant, right? Xiao Wu couldn't help but ask. He's over there. Almost at the same time, Chu Bei stopped the spatial shuttle and pointed downwards. Below them was a sunken basin. At the edge of the basin, there was a 6 or 7-year-old chubby boy lying on the ground, using the grass as cover. He was excitedly looking into the basin without blinking. If Chu Bei hadn't pointed out, Tang San, Xiao Wu, and the others wouldn't have discovered this chubby boy. Boom! Looking into the basin, there was an intense battle going on. Two figures were intertwined with each other, and they cooperated to unleash terrifying attacks one after another. Both of them were wearing fiery red long robes, and there was a large picture of a cheetah on the back of their robes. Unlike ordinary cheetahs, this cheetah was completely red. Their target was a strange plant. Slender vines climbed up, entangling with each other until they were about 10 meters in the air. It looked like it was a special plant formed by countless vines. Its entire body was a clear blue, and its skin flickered with a special kind of crystal. At this moment, the vines of this strange plant, which were more than a foot in diameter, danced rhythmically. Every time it swung down, a blue light tore through the void and whipped towards the two figures with the sound of the air being torn apart. "This is the Blue-Silver King?" Chu Bei muttered to himself as he watched the strange plants being besieged on the battlefield. "Damn it, it's already so difficult to obtain a 50,000-year plant-type soul ring. If I can use this to break through to rank 90 and become a titled Doluo, my sex chances of obtaining that treasure land in Heaven's Vault Mountain will be much higher. But that old fellow, the Poison Doluo, and the White Tiger Sect, Wind Sword Sect, Elephant Armor Sect, and even the Marshal's Soul Hall are all eyeing it covetously. It won't be easy to obtain it." After the two figures conversed for a while, their 8th soul rings lit up, and they transformed into huge fire leopards. Roar! As they roared, the two fire leopards burned with blazing flames and attacked the strange plant from the left and right. "Greedy humans!" The strange plant let out an old voice, and then the vines it flung out suddenly lit up with a bright blue light, and a terrifying energy erupted as it attacked the two fire leopards. Bang! Red and blue lights intertwined with a loud bang, and the aftermath of the collision shook the surrounding trees. Retrieve mission. Host will obtain all the treasures in the ice fire in Yangwell. Mission completion reward. Cultivation conversion speed increased. 1 use of a Class 11 low-grade commodity. Suddenly, the system's voice sounded in Chu Bei's mind. "Ice fire in Yangwell?" Chu Bei frowned. The system never gave missions without a reason. This mission must be related to the treasure land in Heaven's Vault Mountain that the two people on the battlefield mentioned. "Boss, who are they? They're so strong!" Wang Fan looked at the two figures fighting in the basin. "The Fire Leopard sect of the 4 lower sects," Chu Bei replied indifferently. "Boss, what plant is this? Why do I feel that it's very familiar?" Tang San pointed at the strange plants that were being surrounded on the battlefield. He tilted his head to look at Chu Bei, his eyes filled with confusion. "Because it's the king of the blue-silver grass, the Blue-Silver King." Chu Bei controlled the spatial shuttle to land behind the little fat boy, who was watching intently at the edge of the basin. Chu Bei's sudden appearance startled the little fat boy, and he almost screamed. "Shoo!" After seeing Chu Bei with 3 children who were about his age, the little fat boy was relieved. He pointed at the battle in the basin and made a shushing gesture, indicating for Chu Bei's group to be quiet. The 2 Soul Doluo from the Fire Leopard sect retreated quickly in the aftermath of the battle, and their faces were slightly pale. The 2 vines that the Blue-Silver King had lashed out had been broken, and there were still flames coming out of the broken parts. Clearly, either side had gained the upper hand in the collision just now. "Are you done fighting? If you are, I have a question for the 2 of you." Chu Bei walked into the basin under the little fat boy's astonished gaze. After that, he waved at the 2 Soul Doluo from the Fire Leopard sect. "Where did this lunatic come from?" The 2 Soul Doluo from the Fire Leopard sect frowned when they saw Chu Bei's sudden arrival. When they heard his casual question, they were stunned at first, but they snapped back to their senses and scolded him. They looked like they were looking at an idiot. What did the two of you mean when you talked about the treasured land in Heaven's Vault Mountain? Tell me about it. Chu Bei ignored the two Soul Dolo's mocking gazes, and his expression remained calm. Who do you think you are? Get lost if you don't want to die. The two Soul Dolo glanced at Chu Bei. They were clearly enraged, and one of them even raised his hand and slammed it down. However, before the high-temperature fireball could reach Chu Bei, it was annihilated by an invisible and tyrannical power. The two Soul Dolo exchanged a glance as their attack suddenly disappeared, and a hint of astonishment appeared in their eyes. Evidently, they also realized that Chu Bei was unusual. However, before they could unleash their second attack, a sharp gust of wind blew behind them. The two Soul Dolo felt a chill run down their spines. They immediately turned around, and their eyes widened in shock. They saw a huge energy palm that was dozens of meters tall sweeping toward them. The two Soul Dolo didn't dare to hesitate. They immediately transformed back into their fire leopards, and thick armor lit up on the surface of their bodies. Bam! Even so, the two of them still couldn't withstand the terrifying strength of the energy palm. Their armor instantly shattered, and they were smashed into the ground like cannonballs. Who are you? The two Soul Dolo crawled out from the crater. There was blood at the corner of their mouths. When they looked at Chu Bei again, their eyes were filled with fear. Answer my question from before. Chu Bei stood with his hands behind his back. He swept his gaze across the two Soul Dolo. His expression was indifferent, and his tone was dignified. Chapter 208. In the basin, the two Soul Dolo from the Fire Leopard sect met Chu Bei's cold in the forest gaze and looked at each other. After hesitating for a moment, one of them said, 3 days ago, the Poison Dolo discovered a treasure land in Heaven's Vault Mountain. That treasure land is filled with celestial energy and 7-colored light. However, this treasure land hasn't fully formed yet, and it's being isolated by a mysterious energy. Although this treasure land was discovered by the Poison Dolo, there's no such thing as an absolute secret. After the other top powers heard about it, they started to covet this treasure land. Just last night, dense spiritual energy of heaven and earth suddenly surged from that treasure land. We thought that we could only fight for it if we became titled Dolo, so we came here to try our luck. According to my predictions, this treasure land should be formed today. After hearing this, Chu Bei furrowed his brow and asked, Is there a spring in that treasure land? How do you know? Have you already been there? After hearing Chu Bei's words, one of the Soul Dolo was astonished. Can you tell me more about the spring? Chu Bei asked. As that treasure land hasn't fully formed yet, there's a mysterious light barrier blocking it. We can only watch from afar. The spring isn't very big, but it's divided into 2 regions, milky white and vermilion. It's very strange. The other Soul Dolo said. Seems like it's the ice fire in unveil. From the information he obtained from the 2 people in front of him, Chu Bei was certain that this treasure land was the location of the system's mission. After muttering to himself, Chu Bei glanced at the 2 Soul Dolo from the Fire Leopard sect and said, You can leave now. The 2 Soul Dolo furrowed their brows and glanced at the Blue-Silver King before looking at Chu Bei. Don't tell me you're also interested in this 50,000-year soul ring? Why aren't you leaving? Do you want to stay here forever? Chu Bei's voice turned cold again. He swept his cold gaze across the 2 Soul Dolo, and an extremely powerful aura seeped out of his body. The 2 Soul Dolo were shocked. After looking at Chu Bei with indignation, they communicated with their eyes and turned into streaks of light at the same time and left. Another greedy human. The Blue-Silver King shook its vines. However, compared to when he was facing the 2 Soul Dolo earlier, his voice was clearly a little more fearful. As a Blue-Silver King that had cultivated for over 80,000 years, it could sense the aura fluctuations coming from Chu Bei's body. Even though these fluctuations weren't soul power fluctuations, they were more powerful than soul power fluctuations. With its abilities, it wouldn't lose even if it couldn't win against 2 rank 89 Soul Dolo. However, it would definitely die if it had to fight this person in front of it. Don't be nervous, I don't need a soul ring. Chu Bei withdrew his aura and smiled at the Blue-Silver King. Then why haven't you left yet? The Blue-Silver King remained vigilant. Try to sense his aura carefully. With a smile on his face, Chu Bei pulled Tang San in front of him. This is the Emperor's aura. Emperor, you're finally back. After a moment of silence, the Blue-Silver King's aged voice suddenly became filled with excitement. Emperor? Are you talking to me? Tang San was stunned as he looked at the Blue-Silver King. That's because you have a more noble bloodline flowing in your body. If I'm the king of Blue-Silver Grass, then you're the emperor of Blue-Silver Grass. An old man's face appeared in the middle of the interweaving vines. There was a benevolent smile on his face. I still have to cultivate for at least 15,000 years to reach your bloodline realm. Being able to see you and feel the aura of your bloodline, I seem to have found a way to reach an even nobler bloodline. Thank you, my emperor. Cough cough that. I'm afraid you've got the wrong person. I'm just a human with a Blue-Silver Grass martial soul. My actual body isn't Blue-Silver Grass. As he spoke, Tang San opened his right hand, and his Blue-Silver Grass martial soul appeared in his palm. No. The Blue-Silver King shook his head and said anxiously, Great Emperor, I can't be wrong. The aura on your body is that of the Blue-Silver Empress. I can't be wrong. The aura I feel isn't the aura of your martial soul. It's the aura that you carry. The blood flowing in your body is the bloodline of the Blue-Silver Imperial family. Great Emperor, you're the descendant of the Blue-Silver Empress. The descendant of the Blue-Silver Empress? Tang San was stunned. He couldn't help but raise his head to look at Chu Bei. His eyes were filled with confusion. My feeling can't be wrong. Your mother is the previous Blue-Silver Emperor of our Blue-Silver bloodline. The Blue-Silver Emperor will always be of the same bloodline. Only when the previous Blue-Silver Emperor passes away will the next Blue-Silver Emperor appear. The Blue-Silver King's voice was filled with sorrow. The Empress has passed away. From today onwards, you're the Blue-Silver Emperor. All of the Blue-Silver bloodline are your subjects. My mother is the Blue-Silver Empress? She's already passed away. Tang San muttered. He didn't know if the Blue-Silver King was telling the truth. He could only look at Chu Bei for help. Your father should have told you this. But since you've met the Blue-Silver King, I'll tell you. Chu Bei lowered his head to look at Tang San and said, Your mother is indeed the Blue-Silver Empress. Her name is Ian, and she's a 100,000-year plant-type soul beast. She met your father after she took on a human form. Little San's mother is actually a 100,000-year soul beast. Wang Fan's mouth was wide open. His face was filled with astonishment. Is she also a 100,000-year soul beast? Xiao Wu looked at Tang San and pursed her lips. No one knew what she was thinking. Boss, how did my mother die? Tang San asked the question he was most concerned about after he recovered from his shock. Chu Bei shook his head. You can ask your father about your mother's death when you see him in the future. Emperor, let me truly awaken your martial soul. It's great to be able to feel the aura of the Empress from your body. 2 drops of blue liquid flowed down from the Blue-Silver King's eyes. Awaken my martial soul? Tang San furrowed his brows and looked at Chu Bei. His eyes were filled with confusion. Go and do as he asks. During this process, you'll be able to see your mother and feel her aura. Chu Bei patted Tang San lightly. Tang San nodded after hearing Chu Bei's words. He walked towards the Blue-Silver King and sat down cross-legged. The Blue-Silver King's vines slowly rested on Tang San's shoulders. In the next moment, an enormous aura rose from the entire forest. This aura didn't come from the Blue-Silver King, but from all the blue-silver grass in the forest. In the forest, countless blue-silver grass quietly emitted a faint blue light. The blue light emitted by billions of blue-silver grass gathered together to form a blue ocean. Tang San, who was in the center of this blue ocean, seemed to have become a huge devouring mouth. He was crazily devouring the blue energy that was rushing in from the outside. This was different from absorbing the power of a soul ring. The power of a soul ring came from the outside world, but this energy came from the same source as him. It was as if it was his own power. An unprecedented warm current rose from the deepest part of Tang San's body. During this process, he didn't feel the impact and pressure of the enormous energy, nor did he feel his body expanding. When the warm current surged in his body, an extremely gentle aura gently brushed across his body. When he felt this gentle aura, Tang San had an inexplicable urge to cry. It was an indescribable emotion. It was as if he was being caressed by his mother. "Is this my mother?" Tang San muttered softly. Tang San murmured softly. In his vision, he saw the scene when he was just born in this world. A beautiful woman with long blue hair hugged him in her arms. Sparkling and translucent blue tears flowed down the woman's tender face, dripping onto his chest and slowly seeping into it. Even though he couldn't hear the voice in the scene, he could clearly feel the lady's love calling for him. "Mother!" As time passed, the lady in the scene started to fade. At this moment, the real Tang San was still sitting cross-legged in front of the blue-silver king. His face was already covered in tears. The surface of his skin had completely turned a sparkling blue. Countless strands of blue-silver grass emerged from his body and coiled around him. Tang San's soul power started to rise. Rank 22. Rank 23. Rank 24. As Tang San's soul power rose, the two soul rings on his body lit up. Gradually, the originally sparkling strands of blue-silver grass in the forest became even more transparent. They became as bright and transparent as sapphires. Looking at Tang San again, he looked even more harmonious. His black hair gradually turned dark blue. There was a faint golden luster mixed in. "My Emperor, your martial soul has truly awakened. I will now create your third soul ring. I'm worried that you won't be able to withstand the power of your soul ring. I will slowly increase the age of your soul ring." When the blue-silver king finished speaking, Tang San's third soul ring lit up. His soul ring was initially yellow. It gradually turned purplish yellow, and then purple. "Xiao San, let me lend you a helping hand." After a calm voice drifted through the air, Chu Bei waved his hand. A ball of dense mist entered Tang San's body. With a low bang, Tang San's body seemed to have been reconstructed. His originally bronze skin actually had a tinge of gold. The blue-silver king seemed to have sensed the changes in Tang San's body. After looking at Chu Bei in astonishment, his expression became incomparably serious. He tried even harder to increase the age of Tang San's third soul ring. The color of the soul ring continued to change. Purple, dark purple, purplish black, black, 10,000 years. 20,000 years. 30,000 years. "Emperor, the quality of your body has far exceeded my expectations with the help of that lord." As the age of the soul ring continued to increase, the blue-silver king became more and more astonished. 60,000 years. 70,000 years. 80,000 years. When the color of the soul ring turned completely red, the blue-silver king's intertwined torso suddenly trembled. Perhaps because he was too astonished, his face was already distorted. "My Emperor, the quality of your body is the most terrifying I've seen in the past 80,000 years." After a long while, the blue-silver king's excited voice drifted through the air. "A red soul ring, 100,000-year soul ring." After a long while, Tang San opened his eyes. As he looked at the red soul ring on his body, his eyes gradually became misty. Although he could withstand 100,000-year soul ring because of Chu Bei, this 100,000-year soul ring was the inheritance left to him by his mother. It carried the weight of his mother's love. "Great Emperor, don't cry. The matter of the Empress is over. In the future we, your subjects, still need your protection," the blue-silver king gently called out. Tang San wiped his tears and looked at the blue-silver king. "Thank you?" Tang San was a little choked up. He wasn't thanking the blue-silver king for helping him awaken the true blue-silver emperor. Instead, he was thanking the blue-silver emperor for allowing him to see his mother and feel her aura. "Little 3, try releasing your blue-silver domain." Chu Bei's words pulled Tang San back to reality. Domain! Hearing this word from Chu Bei's mouth, Xiao Wu's eyes widened. She looked at Tang San in disbelief. Boss, is this it? Tang San indeed felt that his body had gained an unimaginable special attribute. With a buzz, a ball of blue light appeared on the surface of Tang San's body. This light spread out with Tang San as the center. Not long after, the area within 100 meters was enveloped by this blue light. Within the enveloped area, the blue-silver grass on the ground grew crazily. In a short moment, it had grown to 3 times the height of normal blue-silver grass. The life aura it released was also clearly stronger. Is this that domain? In Little Three's domain, I feel my aura become much stronger. This feeling is so satisfying. Wang Fan had a look of envy. The special characteristic of blue-silver grass is its perseverance and tenacity. In this blue-silver domain, Tang San can increase your soul power and life aura. Of course, if he wants, he can also reduce your soul power. Standing in Tang San's blue-silver domain, Chu Bei looked at Wang Fan and Xiao Wu and said, Boss, we haven't increased our soul power today. Xiao Wu seemed to have thought of something. She took out the money that Ning Rongrong had left for her and raised her head to look at Chu Bei. Chu Bei smiled. Then, he arranged things for Xiao Wu, Wang Fan, and Tang San. 3 minutes later, Xiao Wu went from a rank 21 Soul Grand Master to a rank 31 Soul Elder. Wang Fan also went from a rank 21 Soul Master to a rank 31 Soul Elder. Because Tang San had become a Soul Elder with the help of the Blue-Silver King, and after spending money, he directly became a rank 41 Soul Ancestor. Boss, can you hear me? I'm Ning Rongrong. I found a treasure. Suddenly, Ning Rongrong's voice sounded in Chu Bei's mind. Not only Chu Bei, but Tang San, Xiao Wu, and Wang Fan also heard Ning Rongrong's voice. Tell me the details. Chu Bei's mind moved. Boss, it's great that you can hear me. In an instant, Ning Rongrong's excited voice came from the other side. Boss, I'm at Heaven's Vault Mountain now. There are many people gathered here. It seems that a peerless treasure is about to appear. If you're free, hurry over. With your strength, you'll definitely be able to compete with them. What a coincidence. I was just about to head over. Hearing Ning Rongrong's words, Chu Bei's lips curled up into a smile. Xiao Wu, Wang Fan, and Tang San looked at each other. They were also interested. Chapter 209. Master, my name is Ma Hongjun. I'm sensible and obedient. Please accept me as your disciple. At this moment, little Fatty, who had been lying at the edge of the basin, shouted. As he was too excited, he lost his footing and rolled down the basin. Fortunately, he had enough meat on his body, so he didn't suffer any internal injuries. When he reached the basin, little Fatty hurriedly got up and tidied his clothes. He knelt in front of Chu Bei with a sincere expression. Little fellow, you want to become stronger? Chu Bei smiled as he looked at little Fatty, who had taken the initiative to run to him. Yes, yes. Ma Hongjun nodded his head repeatedly, his eyes filled with worship as he looked at Chu Bei. Forget about accepting a disciple, but you can be like them. You can become my first-rank agent. Chu Bei pointed at Tang San and the others. Thank you, sir. Ma Hongjun nodded again. Then let's go through the signing process. As Chu Bei threw the agent's ring to Ma Hongjun, he tapped Ma Hongjun's forehead and poured information about the first-rank agent into his mind. Host has successfully signed Agent Ma Hongjun. Battle through the heavens cultivation conversion is accelerating. Progress 67%. Progress 68%. Progress 69%. When Ma Hongjun dripped his blood on the ring, the system's voice sounded. When the system's voice disappeared, his cultivation conversion progress increased from 67% to 76%. As for his soul power, he jumped from a rank 75 Soul Sage to a rank 80 Soul Sage. Shrek's 7 monsters, we're only missing one. Chu Bei smiled knowingly as he looked at the chubby boy in front of him. After that, Chu Bei waved his sleeves. A pitch-black opening appeared in front of him, and he led Tang San and the others in. Heaven Vault Mountain was located in the Heaven Do Empire. At the center of Heaven Vault Mountain's peak was an inverted cone-shaped depression. At this moment, there was a huge rainbow-colored sphere around the depression. At the edge of the depression, several powers were gathered. Among them, 7 powers occupied the most important positions. On the back of one of the robes, there was a white tiger with a ferocious bloody mouth. It was the White Tiger Sect, one of the 4 lower sections. The forces beside the White Tiger Sect wore robes with a sharp long sword printed on the chest. They were the Wind Sword Sect, one of the 4 lower sections. The forces beside the Wind Sword Sect had a scarlet leopard emblem on their backs. It was the Fire Leopard Sect, one of the 4 lower sections. The people from the 4th faction had a picture of a tortoiseshell mammoth on their backs. They were from the Elephant Armor Sect, one of the 4 major sections. The 5th force had the word soul printed on their backs. They were the number 1 force in the continent, the Martial Spirit Palace. The 6th force was one of the 3 upper sects led by Ning Fingji and Gurong, the 7 treasures glazed sect. As for the 7th power, to be precise, it should be a single person. This was a skinny old man who looked like a javelin. His hair and beard were all dark green. He stood there quietly with his eyes closed. His entire being gave off an illusory feeling, as if he was an illusion. His face was expressionless. Or rather, his expression was completely stiff. His cheeks were sunken, and his green hair was messy. He was wearing a simple gray robe. "How dare you covet the treasure land that I discovered? You're looking down on me." The moment the old man opened his eyes, the temperature in the air seemed to drop by a few degrees. It was a pair of dark green eyes, without a trace of life in them. Not only did they reveal a coldness, but they also revealed a cold evilness. "Poison Dolor, you can't say that. Although you discovered this treasure land first, it still has no owner. Why can't we fight for it?" the leader of the Elephant Armor Sect said. "I'm afraid you don't have that big of an appetite." The old man snorted coldly. His body was immediately surrounded by a hazy dark green gas. It was extremely frightening. The old man was one of the titled Doloa, the poison Doloa, Dugubo. Immediately, all the powerhouses present focused their gazes on the 7-colored sphere as they waited anxiously. After a long while, accompanied by a rumble, a clamor sounded from behind the Wind Sword Sect, one of the 4 lower sects. "This mountain has already been sealed by us. How can you still come up? If you've entered by mistake, leave immediately." The place where Chu Bei's group landed was precisely where the Wind Sword Sect's forces were located. A disciple at the back of the Wind Sword Sect immediately ordered them to leave after discovering Chu Bei and the rest. "If you don't leave, don't blame me for attacking." Seeing that Chu Bei and the rest didn't intend to leave, the disciple from the Wind Sword Sect immediately frowned. "You're courting death." Seeing that Chu Bei and the rest ignored his words and continued forward, the disciple's eyes were filled with killing intent. After that, he drew his sword and charged towards Chu Bei. However, before that disciple could get within a meter of Chu Bei, his entire body trembled violently. After that, he flew backwards and crashed onto the ground, motionless. "What's going on?" Hearing the commotion, the leading elder from the Wind Sword Sect shouted. When he saw Chu Bei and the rest, his face was filled with displeasure. "Elder Shui, he killed junior brother Mu," a disciple said immediately. Hearing this, the Wind Sword Sect's elder's cold gaze landed on Chu Bei. Without any explanation, he waved his sleeve, and a total of 8 soul rings lit up. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 black. When the 8th soul ring lit up, a purplish-red sword appeared in the elder's hand. The sword vibrated, and a sharp sword light tore through the void and swept towards Chu Bei. Chu Bei glanced at the elder indifferently. He was expressionless as he continued to lead Tang San and the rest forward. It was only when the sword light was in front of him that he used his finger like a sword and casually shot out a burst of energy towards the elder's sword light. Whoosh! Under the horrified gazes of the crowd, the old man's sword gleam was destroyed as easily as crushing dry weeds. In the next moment, before the elder could react, that seemingly ordinary but actually terrifying burst of energy had already pierced through his body. Fresh blood splattered in the air. In the blink of an eye, a perfectly fine living person was split into two halves. His corpse fell to the ground, and it was extremely bloody. Elder! Elder Shui is dead! How is this possible? Elder Shui is a rank 88 Soul Dalua. How did this happen? Who exactly is he? Seeing the elder's corpse on the ground, the Wind Sword sect's disciples were stunned. After they recovered from their shock, they looked at Chu Bei in fear. They didn't even see his martial soul or soul rings, and their elder was killed. Poison Doloa Dugu Bo's brows also furrowed tightly upon seeing this, and a grim look appeared on his face. The elder who died was a rank 88 assault-type Soul Dolua. He was one of the top 5 in the Wind Sword sect. Even if it was him, he would have to expend some effort to defeat his opponent. However, this unknown person was able to kill his opponent in an instant, and this was under the premise that his opponent had used his 8th soul ring. Furthermore, this person didn't seem to have expended much energy. He still looked very relaxed. Of course, the 2 rank 89 Soul Dolua from the Fire Leopard sect were the most astonished among the various powers on Heaven's Vault Mountain. They didn't expect this person to come. Furthermore, he killed a rank 88 assault-type Soul Dolua from the Wind Sword sect. Su Jie and Chen Su felt very lucky. Fortunately, they chose to give in Jiwu Forest. Otherwise, they would have become corpses. Brother Su, from your expressions, do you recognize this person? The leader of the Elephant Armor sect asked after noticing Su Jie's strange expression. Su Jie shook his head. We only met him in Jiwu Forest not long ago. We don't know who he is. We only know that he's very strong. It's very likely that he's a rank 95 title Doluo. I wonder which sect this title Doluo is from. He dared to kill Shui Chao in front of everyone. It's obvious that he's not afraid of the Wind Sword sect. The leader of the White Tiger sect looked at Chu Bei and guessed his identity. Chu Bei glanced at Shui Chao's corpse. Since the other party wanted to kill him, he wouldn't show any mercy. Boss, I'm here! Just as everyone was guessing where Chu Bei came from, Ning Rongrong, who was standing between Gu Rong and Ning Fingji, waved her hand excitedly and shouted. Chu Bei looked at Ning Rongrong and nodded slightly. After that, he walked over with Tang San and the rest. Is he from the 7 Treasures Glaze sect? When did the 7 Treasures Glaze sect gain another title Doluo? Together with Jiangu and Su Jie, the 7 Treasures Glaze sect has 3 title Doluo. When they saw Chu Bei and the rest walking towards the 7 Treasures Glaze sect, everyone thought that Chu Bei was from the 7 Treasures Glaze sect. May I know what your title is? Dugubo looked at Chu Bei and asked. Are you also here for my treasured land? Your treasured land? Treasures of heaven and earth have always belonged to those who are capable. As he spoke, Chu Bei had already led Tang San and the rest to Ning Fingji's side. What a great belong to those who are capable! Dugubo focused his gaze and snorted coldly. Then we'll rely on our own abilities later. You want this treasured land because you think it can suppress the poison in your body and relieve your pain. Chu Bei's calm voice drifted through the air. He actually said that the poison Doloa is poisoned. How can someone who plays with poisons be poisoned? After hearing Chu Bei's words, everyone seemed to have heard a joke. Their expressions were weird. However, Dugubo's expression changed drastically. He looked at Chu Bei in astonishment. How do you know that I'm suffering from the poison's backlash? After calming himself down, Dugubo looked coldly at Chu Bei. The aura on his body started to rise. In recent years, his ribs would feel numb and itchy from time to time. It was extremely uncomfortable. Every noon and midnight, he would feel a piercing pain in his head. His entire body would spasm. This process was so painful that he wanted to die. In order to relieve the pain from the poison's backlash, he had used all sorts of methods. However, they were all to no avail. It was only when he discovered this treasured land 3 days ago that he realized that the pain in his body could be alleviated by staying here. Chapter 210. What? The poisoned Doloa was really poisoned? Hearing Dugubo's admission, the various powers experts were stunned. You're old, and you've lived long enough. It'll pass after a few years. It's just a pity for your granddaughter. Chu Bei crossed his arms in front of his chest and calmly looked at Dugubo. He continued, Once the poison backfires on her, I'm afraid she won't have the same perseverance as you to endure the pain. Her poison will only flare up more violently than yours, because she's been immersed in this poison since she was in her mother's womb. What are you trying to say? Dugubo's brows were tightly knitted, and killing intent surged in his eyes. A ball of black mist swept towards Chu Bei. Chu Bei casually waved his sleeves to disperse the black mist. He indifferently said, I can heal your bone-devouring poison. You can cure the poison in my body? Dugubo suppressed the throbbing in his heart and probed. Why should I believe you? How can you prove it? If you want to use this method to make me give up on fighting for this treasure land, you'll be disappointed. No matter what, I'm determined to obtain this treasure land. Chu Bei shook his head and no longer paid attention to Dugubo. He turned to look at the colonel. Through the light barrier, the oval-shaped pool below was divided into milky white and vermilion red. The strange thing was that although these two colors of spring water were in the same pool, they were clearly separated. They didn't invade each other, and remained on one side of the pool. The surging water vapor turned into a rainbow color in midair, and continuously supplied the light barrier with energy. Boss, this is… Tang San looked at the spring water below and was stunned at first. When he came to his senses, his body involuntarily trembled from excitement. He never would have thought that he would see such a magnificent scene on the Doloa continent. In the hidden weapon 100 separations of the mysterious heaven treasure record from the previous world, there was a secret record on poison other than hidden weapons. It recorded a few extremely rare medicines, some of which were highly toxic, and some of which were natural treasures. At the end of this secret record, there was a detailed description of a treasure basin. Of course, this so-called treasure basin didn't refer to gold or silver, but rare plants. The treasure basin was blessed by the heavens. It was the place where the spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered. The scene before his eyes was exactly the same as the treasure basin described in the mysterious heaven treasure record. This was especially true for the milky white and vermilion spring water that was clearly separated from each other. This was the most recognizable feature. You are not mistaken. This spring water is the ice fire in Yang well. Chu Bei seemed to have seen through Tang San's thoughts as he spoke in a faint voice. Ice fire in Yang well? Hearing the words mentioned by Chu Bei, not only Ning Rongrong, Xiao Wu, Wang Fan, and the other little fellows, but even Ning Fingji, Gu Rong, and the other experts who had lived for a long time were puzzled. They could not help but cast their gazes on Chu Bei. In the distance, Dugubo, the experts of the 4 lower sects, and the others all pricked up their ears. The ice fire in Yangwo refers to the unique spring that you see before you. It is a pair of eyes, and the yin and yang restrain each other. Even 10 million years might not be enough to form one. Although it can be used to nurture animals, it is not very beneficial to ordinary people. This is because as long as you live near the ice fire in Yang well, your body will be attacked by the 2 extreme attributes of heaven and earth's spirit chi for a short period of time. If you do not leave in time, your body will explode and you will die. Of course, opportunities are often accompanied by risks. If you can endure the attack of the 2 extreme attributes, your cultivation will increase by leaps and bounds. Speaking up to this point, Chu Bei's gaze landed on Dugubo's body again. The reason why the pain from the poison's backlash is alleviated here is because the extreme heat and extreme cold both have a restraining effect on poison. After hearing what you said, I am even more determined to obtain this treasure land. Dugubo's eyes were filled with greed. The eyes of the people of the 4 lower sects and the martial spirit hall shone even brighter. Chu Bei smiled faintly. His calm demeanor made it seem as if he did not see these people as his opponents at all. He placed his hands behind his back and waited quietly for the treasure basin to fully form. Whoosh! Finally, as everyone waited, the ice fire in Yang well began to boil and bubble. Then, under countless gazes, the thick white fog around it dissipated. At this moment, the powerful cultivators of the various forces could finally see the situation around the ice fire in Yang well. This was like a paradise for plants. There were all kinds of plants in all kinds of shapes and sizes. As far as the eye could see, every single plant was a rare and precious item. Even the 4 lower sects and the martial spirit palace, which had a huge foundation, were dumbfounded by what they saw. Dugubo rubbed his palms and his face was flushed. He looked as if he could not wait to go through the 7-colored light barrier and pluck the plants. Crack! Accompanied by a crisp explosion, a spore-shaped plant exploded. It was a blue-green worm stalk with a shiny surface and 8 pairs of ringed legs. Blue snow silkworm! Everyone exclaimed when they recognized the spiritual item in the spore. Tang San and Dugubo were especially excited. Snow silkworm, the best of the best among the worm stalks. The blue snow silkworm was the supreme of the snow silkworms. Crack! Another crisp cracking sound rang out. It was a plant that resembled a lotus. Its outer skin was yellowish-brown, and its cross-section was yellowish-red. Its leaves were intertwined, and its stalks were long and curved. Its leaves were egg-shaped and heart-shaped. This is the cinnabar lotus? It can grow so big! Everyone exclaimed again. Unlike the worm stalks, the cinnabar lotus liked the cold. It was very cold, and could suppress heat. It was also a rare herb that was very effective against fire poison. Both the blue snow silkworm and the cinnabar lotus were priceless treasures. If they saw these 2 spiritual plants under normal circumstances, everyone would probably take a good look at them. However, everyone's gazes quickly landed on an extremely rare plant. It was a pale pink, leafless flower. Every petal was sparkling and translucent like a crystal. The pale pink flower swayed gently with the mist. Its stamen was pale purple, as if purple diamonds were embedded there. When everyone's gazes landed on this huge pink flower, they were all stunned. Then, their eyes were filled with excitement, and their breathing quickened. The delicate silk immortal. One of the 10 great immortal treasures. It was the nemesis of all poisons, and could neutralize all poisons. It couldn't detoxify poisons, but it could suppress poisons. Anyone who consumed the delicate silk immortal wouldn't be afraid of any poisons. Crack! Crack! Crisp cracking sounds could be heard around the ice fire in Yangwell. Star anise mysterious ice grass. Blazing delicate apricot. Soul origin flower. Celestial wind fire grass. Everyone's breathing stopped as they saw the supreme grade spiritual plants appear one after another. The passion in their eyes became more and more intense. The wealth hidden in this land is far more terrifying than we imagined. We have to invite the sect leader here. That's right. With our current strength, we can't take this land from the poison Dolua and that mysterious person. You guys continue to guard this place. I'll go and invite the Jew Dolua over. Very soon, a soul Dolua from the Elephant Armor sect, Fire Leopard sect, White Tiger sect, and the other 3 sects left. The Martial Soul Hall and the Wind Sword sect followed closely behind. 1 person from each sect left. Whoosh! As time passed, the spring water in the ice fire in Yangwell boiled more and more. When it reached a limit, it started to calm down. The spore plants in the surroundings had almost all exploded, revealing the rare spirit plants within. An hour later, several streaks of light flashed across the sky above Heaven Vault Mountain and landed on the mountain peak. Greetings, sect leader! The disciples of the Elephant Armor sect shouted in unison. He was a muscular middle-aged man. He was Lin Bin, the sect leader of the Elephant Armor sect. He was a rank 91 titled Doluo. Swish! Just as Lin Bin landed, several other figures landed. They were led by a man in a fiery red robe. He was Wang Yang, the sect leader of the Fire Leopard sect. He was a rank 91 titled Doluo. Who's the one who doesn't respect the Wind Sword sect? How dare you kill an elder of my sect? At this moment, a thunderous voice sounded above Heaven Vault Mountain. It was filled with a strong killing intent. His voice was heard before he arrived. Very soon, a figure stopped above the Wind Sword sect. His gaze landed on the corpse of the elder that Chu Bei had sliced into two. His gaze was cold. Li Hai, the sect leader of the Wind Sword sect. He was a rank 92 titled Doluo. Sect leader, he's the one who killed Elder Shui. A disciple angrily pointed at Chu Bei, who was beside Ning Fingji. Sect leader Ning, he's from your sect? Li Hai's aura rose. His 9 soul rings lit up, and a light blue sword appeared in his hand. The blade of the sword radiated a cold light, and its vibrations were sharp and ear-piercing. Brother Li, my sect can't tolerate such a person. I can only tell you that Elder Sword was defeated by Boss Chu 3 days ago. He was defeated by the way of the sword. Just as Li Hai was about to disregard Ning Fingji's dignity and attack Chu Bei with his sword, Ning Fingji's calm voice sounded. After hearing Ning Fingji's words, Li Hai's pupils shrank. His body trembled violently, and the sword that he had prepared was instantly retracted. He defeated Sword Venerable with his sword. Li Hai furrowed his brows, and his voice was filled with astonishment. You stopped at the right time. Otherwise, you would be a corpse now. Chu Bei glanced at Li Hai indifferently. His cold voice didn't contain any emotion. After meeting Chu Bei's gaze, Li Hai became more vigilant, and his expression turned ugly. His martial soul was a sword, and he had naturally sparred with the sword Doluo many times. However, he had always been defeated. If the person in front of him had really defeated the sword Doluo, then he definitely wouldn't be a match for him. Because of this, he didn't swing his sword earlier. Did you hear that? He defeated Sword Venerable. In the way of the sword. If that's the case, then this person is at least rank 97. But why haven't I heard of this person before? After hearing Ning Fingji's words, the various experts around the call sized up Chu Bei again. They were shocked. Chapter 211. Boss Chu, we meet again. Around the call, just as everyone was shocked by the news that Chu Bei had defeated the Sword Venerable, a ripple appeared in the sky, and 2 figures walked out from the ripple. The person who spoke was wearing a long white robe, and there was a white tiger imprinted on the back of his robe. Dai Tianya, the sect leader of the White Tiger sect, and a rank 92 titled Doluo. Boss, I brought my uncle here through the Void Transmission Stone. This thing is really useful. Daimubai was beside Dai Tianya. When Ning Rongrong sent a message through the Void Transmission Stone, he was the first to hear it. Not only that, but he also discovered that he could use the Void Transmission Stone to reach the location of the other representatives who also had a Void Transmission Stone. Because of this, he was able to bring Dai Mubai over so quickly. Chu Bei nodded at Dai Tianya and smiled in return. The last time they met, it was in the Star Luo Palace. Sect leader, what's Boss Chu's background? The sect leaders of the 7 Treasures Glazed sect and the White Tiger sect are very polite to him. Su Jia and Chen Su from the Fire Leopard sect asked Wan Yang at the same time. What I know about him is the same as the 2 of you. He defeated the Sword Venerable in the way of the sword. As for how strong he is, and why he's called boss, I can't say for sure. Wan Yang paused for a moment before he added. However, according to sect leader Ning, his martial soul isn't a sword. Until now, no one has seen his martial soul, and no one has even seen his soul rings. If not for the fact that he defeated the Sword Venerable so easily, I'm afraid no one would think that he's a titled Doluo. After all, he looks too young. After listening to Wan Yang, Sujia and Chen Su looked at each other. When they looked at Chu Bei again, they were even more curious. They were very glad that sometimes, choosing to back down was a wise decision. As for their thoughts of waiting for their sect leader to come before taking revenge, they had already thrown that to the back of their minds. Boss, Tang San, Brother Mubai, you're all here. It wasn't long before another ripple appeared in the sky above the call, and then a 7 or 8-year-old child and a middle-aged man appeared. Oscar, did you also come here through the void sound transmission stone? Dai Mubai asked. Yeah, I heard Rongrong's words and came over, but I didn't expect there to be so many people. After responding to Dai Mubai, Oscar brought the middle-aged man beside him to Chu Bei. Chu Bei's gaze landed on the middle-aged man. He then looked at the red dot on the system panel's proxy map. A playful look appeared on his face. He had never thought that his next acting target would be brought to him by Oscar just like that. The middle-aged man looked to be in his 40s or 50s. His figure was slightly thin, and his short black hair was parted in a 370 split. His appearance was ordinary, and there was a hint of tiredness in his eyes. Boss, I just met this person. Oscar pointed at the middle-aged man and introduced him to Chu Bei, but before he could finish, the latter waved his hand and interrupted him. You Xiaojiang, right? Chu Bei looked at the middle-aged man calmly. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Oscar and the middle-aged man opened their mouths wide in shock. How do you know my name? The middle-aged man asked nervously. Chu Bei smiled and continued. You came from the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan and should have had a bright future, but you didn't expect your martial soul to mutate negatively, so you were ridiculed. You had a bottleneck in your soul power, so you devoted all your thoughts to the study of martial soul theory. After leaving the clan, you met Flender and Lu Erlong, and earned the famous title of the Golden Iron Triangle. Coincidentally, you and Flender fell in love with Lu Erlong at the same time. Fortunately, you won Lu Erlong's heart in the end. Unfortunately, you found out that Erlong was your cousin on your wedding night. As for your first love, she was the disciple of the former Pope of the Martial Soul Hall, who is the current Pope, Bibi Dong. All in all, half of your life was very tragic. After saying that, Chu Bei crossed his arms in front of his chest. Am I wrong? This uncle is really pitiful. He only found out that the bride was his cousin on their wedding night. It's really like the saying, all lovers in the world will eventually become siblings. The current Pope, Bibi Dong, is his first love. His background is very big. The Golden Iron Triangle, I heard Father talk about it before. It's a very powerful group. After hearing Chu Bei's words, Tang San, Dai Mubai, Ning Rongrong, and the others all looked at Yu Xiaojiang with pity and surprise. Yu Xiaojiang looked at Chu Bei in a daze, and the shock in his eyes was even more obvious. It seemed that not only was his cultivation high, but he was also a know-it-all. Very few people knew about the situation that he had described earlier, especially his relationship with Bibi Dong. Boss Chu, this is all in the past. Don't make fun of me. The corners of Yu Xiaojiang's mouth curled into a bitter smile. Then, he looked at Chu Bei with incomparable sincerity and said, The ability you bestowed upon Oscar is truly too miraculous. I wonder if I have the qualifications to become your representative. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Chu Bei was stunned at first, but then he smiled and nodded. I see that your talent is extraordinary. Naturally, you have the qualifications. When this matter is over, I'll give you the proxy ring. Thank you, boss! Yu Xiaojiang was stunned at first, but then his face was filled with joy and excitement. He thought that he would face many obstacles to becoming Chu Bei's proxy. Who would have thought that it would be so straightforward? After the excitement, Yu Xiaojiang hurriedly moved and walked behind Chu Bei with Oscar. They continued to wait for the treasured land in the call to be completely formed. The people from the Martial Soul Hall aren't coming? What a coincidence. There's one less opponent. Dai Tianya looked in the direction of the Martial Soul Hall and muttered to himself. However, just as he finished speaking, 3 long streaks of light swept over from afar and landed in front of the Martial Soul Hall's army. Ju Doluo, Gui Doluo, and the Pope! After seeing the 3 people from the Martial Soul Hall, Ning Fingji, Gu Rong, Dai Tianya from the White Tiger sect, Li Hai from the Windsword sect, Lin Bin from the Elephant Armor sect, and Wan Yang from the Fire Leopard sect exclaimed at the same time. Their faces were filled with astonishment. Poison Doluo Dugabo's dark green pupils contracted involuntarily. His brows were tightly furrowed, and there was a hint of astonishment in his eyes. Evidently, they didn't expect the Martial Soul Hall to treat this treasured land with such importance. Not only did they send 2 titled Dolua, but even the Pope himself was here. Chu Bei's expression didn't change much. He only sized up the Ju Dolua, Gui Dolua, and the Pope. On the other hand, Yu Xiaojing, who was behind Chu Bei, had a drastic change in expression when he saw the Martial Spirit Palace's Pope. His body stiffened. "Uncle Gang, isn't that your first love? Aren't you going to greet her?" Tang San had a playful look on his face as he pointed at Bibi Dong. "Shut up. You kids shouldn't worry about adult matters." Yu Xiaojing angrily glared at Tang San, then ignored Bibi Dong as if nothing had happened. Bibi Dong landed at the front of the Martial Soul Hall and swept his indifferent gaze across his surroundings. When his gaze landed on Chu Bei and the others, he fixed his gaze on Yu Xiaojing. His lithe body shuddered violently for an instant. However, the astonishment on his face only lasted for a moment, and he quickly regained his composure. After that, he leisurely strode towards Chu Bei and the others. The Ju Dolua and Gui Dolua followed closely behind him. Today, Bibi Dong was dressed in a luxurious black robe that was inlaid with golden patterns. He wore a 9-song purple gold crown, and he held a scepter that was about 2 meters long and inlaid with countless gemstones. His body exuded an invisible sense of nobility and holiness, and people couldn't help but want to worship him. Seeing Bibi Dong walking over, Yu Xiaojing let out a faint sigh. His originally calm eyes were filled with waves. There was regret, reminiscence, and even more disappointment. "Long time no see." Bibi Dong's gentle and pleasant voice easily made people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. "Yes, long time no see. How have you been these years?" Yu Xiaojing's gaze became bitter. A faint smile appeared on Bibi Dong's face. "Of course it's good. As the ruler of the Martial Soul Hall, even the emperors of the 2 empires have to be courteous to me. Do you think I'm not good? Dong Dong, I know the pain in your heart." Yu Xiaojing sighed again, and he seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. "Dong Dong? I can't remember how many years it has been since someone dared to call me that." Bibi Dong's voice suddenly became cold. "Please call me the Pope, or Your Holiness. I'm no longer the silly Bibi Dong from back then. Your Holiness the Pope, let bygones be bygones." Yu Xiaojing's pupils shrank a little, and a trace of pain flowed out from his eyes. He turned around, as if he didn't want to look at that familiar face. "Haha, you said let bygones be bygones?" Bibi Dong suddenly laughed, as if she had completely changed into a different person. The original holy aura on her body disappeared and was replaced by a heart-palpitating madness. "Yu Xiaojing, do you still remember how you left me back then? For the sake of his younger sister? Funny, this is too funny. You actually refused to accept me because of your own sister. I can become the Pope, admittedly it's because of you, but I hate you. You are the person I hate the most in my life. I'm already standing at the peak of the continent. I want you to suffer, I want to torture Lu Erlong, and I want to destroy everything you care about." Bibi Dong's emotions became more and more agitated. Her eyes were as cold as a poisonous snake. "Was it me who left you? What the truth is, who knows?" Looking at the crazed Bibi Dong, Yu Xiaojing's face was filled with pain. "Bibi Dong, he's about to become the representative of my All Heavens shop. If you want to hurt him, or have any ideas about those related to him, I hope you'll consider it carefully before making a move." Chu Bei calmly looked at Bibi Dong, and it wasn't difficult to hear the thick threat in his words. Chapter 212. Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to me like that? Bibi Dong looked at Chu Bei and snorted coldly. Intense killing intent rose in his eyes. "Your Holiness, please don't involve anyone else in our matters." Yu Xiaojing took a step forward and stood in front of Chu Bei. His eyes met Bibi Dong's. Bibi Dong glanced at Chu Bei again before shifting his disdainful and murderous gaze away from him. He waved his sleeves and returned to the front of the Martial Soul Hall's army. Did you hear the conversation between the Martial Soul Hall's Pope and that man? They actually have that kind of relationship. Who knows where that man came from? To be able to catch the eye of His Holiness, he must be a big shot. But that man seems to have abandoned your holiness. In the end, he married his own cousin. How interesting. He abandoned the Pope. That man is really something. But seeing how the Pope lost his composure, he must hate that man. No one is allowed to discuss the Pope's private matters. Just as everyone was quietly discussing the matter between Bibi Dong and Yu Xiaojing, Gui Doluo's majestic voice reverberated throughout Heaven's Vault Mountain. However, if one looked closely, they would notice that both the Ghost Doluo and the Chrysanthemum Doluo were still stunned. Evidently, they had been shocked by Bibi Dong's words. All of you are really going all out for my treasure land. The sect master isn't in the sect, and even the Pope isn't in the Martial Soul Hall. Dugu Bo's gaze swept across the various powers, and his expression darkened. If this had been before, he would have been confident of obtaining this treasure land. But now, it seemed like he could only snatch some rare treasures. In fact, all of the lower four sects had already given up on this treasure land when they saw the Ghost Doluo, the Chrysanthemum Doluo, and the Pope of the Martial Soul Hall. After all, their sects couldn't compare to the Martial Soul Hall. Right now, their thoughts were the same as Dugu Bo's. They wanted to snatch as many rare treasures as they could before the treasure land completely formed and the rainbow barrier disappeared. This was especially true for the delicate silk immortal, one of the 10 great rare immortal items. Rumble! Suddenly, the 7-colored light barrier emitted a rumbling sound. Almost at the same time, the spring water below stopped boiling completely. A faint colored mist slowly formed on the surface of the water, which was extremely gorgeous. It seems like the treasured land has taken shape. The light barrier is about to break. The 4 sect masters, Ningfengji, Dugu Bo, the Ju Doluo, Gui Doluo, and the other powerful beings from the Martial Soul Hall were all very excited to see this. Boom! Under everyone's expectant gazes, the rainbow-colored light barrier turned into a rain of light and dissipated after a few seconds. It was also in this instant that Gurong, Ningfengji, Dai Tianya of the White Tiger sect, Li Hai of the Wind Sword sect, Lin Bin of the Elephant Armor sect, Wan Yang of the Fire Leopard sect, Dugu Bo of the Poison Doluo, Yu Guan of the Chrysanthemum Doluo, and Gui Mei of the Ghost Doluo all unleashed their maximum speed at the same time as they hurtled toward the Colonel Buzz Buzz. However, just as the group of Tidal Doluo surged into the call, a layer of dazzling golden light surged out of the Colonel. Before everyone could react, a huge 9-story golden pagoda appeared above the spring water. To be more precise, it covered all the areas around the spring water that had spirit plants. The golden pagoda had 8 corners, and each corner was formed by 3 intertwining divine dragons. Just looking at it gave one a majestic feeling. The unknown metal material could not only release dazzling light, but there were also specks of bluish-green light mixed within it. It was like the stars in the night sky, and it was very magical. What the hell is this? The group of titled Dolo looked at the 9-story golden pagoda that had suddenly appeared in front of them, and their brows furrowed as they hovered in the air. When they looked along one of the corners of the pagoda, everyone's pupils suddenly shrank when they saw where the golden light was spreading from that corner. At this moment there were specks of light spreading out from Chu Bei's palm, and they were connected to the 9-story golden pagoda that was enveloping the treasured land in the kernel. What's going on with that pagoda? It seems to have been created by the mysterious person who defeated the Sword Doluo. Is this his way of doing things? Did you see his martial soul just now? And his soul rings? No, I only saw his hands release that golden light for some reason, and that huge golden pagoda appeared in the treasured land. It turned into that metal. Could that huge 9-story golden pagoda be his soul skill? That can't be. I've never seen a soul skill like that before. Around the call, the powerful individuals from the various organizations were stunned as they looked at the 9-story golden pagoda. Their eyes were wide open, and they were in disbelief. After that, they turned to look at Chu Bei, and their eyes were filled with astonishment. Sensing everyone's gazes, Chu Bei looked at the golden pagoda that was enveloping the treasured land and nodded in satisfaction. This was the Class 10 exquisite pagoda that he had sold. It was the pagoda in the hands of the pagoda heavenly king, Li Jing. You're indeed the person who defeated the sword Doluo. What a great technique! Dugubo glanced coldly at Chu Bei, and 9 soul rings appeared around his body. His 9th soul ring flashed. Jade phosphorus divine light! Dugubo transformed into a huge python. His scales were green, and they glowed with a frightening light. Following a loud roar, his huge snake tail whipped towards the 9-story golden pagoda. The space that the snake tail swept across collapsed, and rumbled. Mammoth shield! Lin Bin from the elephant armor sect also had 9 soul rings. After his 9th soul ring lit up, he roared and transformed into a huge ancient mammoth elephant. His elephant hooves contained terrifying energy as they kicked the 9-story golden pagoda. Leopard flame! The fire leopard sex Wan Yang transformed into a scarlet-red cheetah. The instant his 9th soul ring flashed, he let out a long roar towards the sky. A fire leopard that was the same size as him surged out of his body and swept towards the 9-story golden pagoda. Everywhere it passed, the air sizzled as it burned, and the surrounding temperature rose. White tiger annihilation! The white tiger sex Dai Tianya transformed into a huge white tiger. He opened his mouth and took a deep breath. Soul power gathered in his mouth, and then a beam of intersecting golden light surged out. The golden light carried a frightening aura as it struck towards the 9-story golden pagoda. Netherworld sword kill! A light blue longsword appeared in Li Hai's hand. The blade of the sword revealed a cold light. As he roared, a beam of sword light shot out from the tip of the sword. The sound of it breaking through the air was ear-piercing. Ghostly possession! Gui Mei roared, and his 9 soul rings lit up as his body started to float in the air. Amidst the black gas, he slapped his palm towards the 9-story golden pagoda. Broken chrysanthemum, wounded everywhere, heartbroken flowers fall! Ju Doluo Yuguan opened his right palm, and a layer of faint purple gas appeared in his palm. Purple light spread, and a huge purple chrysanthemum grew. The weird thing was that every petal of the chrysanthemum was furry and cute. The entire chrysanthemum was one entity, but it didn't emit any fragrance. The stamen in the center was more than half a foot taller than the petals. The tip of the stamen flashed with a faint golden light. As he shouted, the purple chrysanthemum petals scattered and turned into cold blades that swept towards the 9-story golden pagoda. Almost at the same time, the 7 titled Doluo used their 9th soul skills and unleashed their strongest attacks towards the 9-story golden pagoda. Their soul skills carried all kinds of strange lights. As they attacked the 9-story golden pagoda, they immediately intersected with beautiful colors. Chapter 213. Boom, boom, boom! The 7 titled Doluo's terrifying attacks landed on the 9-story golden pagoda at the same time, causing a deafening boom. Amidst the boom, the pagoda shuddered slightly, and a metallic sound rang out. After that, before the 7 titled Doluo could react, the pagoda suddenly unleashed an unparalleled aura. Amidst the dazzling golden light, a frightening energy ripple spread from the pagoda. After the energy ripple left the pagoda, it immediately turned into a ferocious river that pounced towards the 7 titled Doluo like an ancient ferocious beast. Bam, bam, bam! This recoil came too suddenly, and the 7 titled Doluo couldn't react in time before they were sent flying. They only managed to stabilize themselves after flying 100 meters away. When the 7 titled Doluo returned to the top of the col, they looked at each other before their gazes landed on the 9-story golden pagoda. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Their combined strongest attack wasn't able to shatter this 9-story golden pagoda. This golden pagoda's defensive strength is so strong! Is it really that mysterious person's martial soul? Shouldn't that mysterious person's martial soul be a sword? After all, he defeated the sword Doluo yesterday. Not only did the 7 titled Doluo fail to shatter it, they were even sent flying by it. This pagoda is really terrifying. Everyone looked at the 9-story golden pagoda above the ice fire in Yangwell before looking at the 7 tidal dolo around the pagoda. They all gasped. At this moment, Bibi Dong was holding her scepter and releasing a holy aura from her body. She stood in front of everyone from the Martial Soul Hall and glanced at the golden pagoda before looking at Chu Bei. She furrowed her brows, and her expression became a little more serious. Earlier, he thought that the person who had threatened him was just an elder from the 7 Treasures Glazed sect. However, it seemed like that person wasn't who he thought he was. Yu Xiaojing's gaze alternated between the golden pagoda and Chu Bei. Apart from shock, there was more curiosity and confusion in his eyes, as well as a kind of desire. He had studied martial soul theory for many years, but had never seen such an ability. Right now, he was eager to see what this mysterious person's martial soul was and what his soul skill was. Perhaps, he would be able to open a new door to his martial soul through her. Even though Ning Rongrong, Dai Mubai, and the others didn't understand what Chu Bei was doing, their faces were brimming with excitement. They only knew that their boss had single-handedly protected this precious land from 7 tidal dolo. It's pretty useful. Chu Bei nodded in satisfaction at the defensive power of the Linglong Treasure Pagoda. Your Excellency, you're really something. We just want to snatch some spirit plants. But what you want is the entire treasure land. You're not even willing to let us get a single spirit plant. The light blue sword in Li Hai's hand trembled as he pointed at the 9-story golden pagoda that covered the entire valley and snorted. Chu Bei smiled, and did not refute, because what the other said was correct. What he wanted was the entire treasured land. Ever since the system had issued the quest, he didn't want anyone to take away any of the spirit plants. The things that the Martial Soul Hall wants cannot be coveted by others. Since we can't break this golden pagoda, I'm sure it will disappear automatically if we defeat you. The Chrysanthemum Dolua Yuguan and the Ghost Dolua Gui Mei exchanged glances, and their gazes landed on Chu Bei at the same time as they spoke coldly. That's true, but if you want to defeat me, I'm afraid it'll be harder than breaking this pagoda. Chu Bei crossed his arms in front of his chest, and looked at Yuguan and Gui Mei mockingly. You're too confident. Yuguan and Gui Mei snorted coldly, and looked at each other. After communicating with their gazes, their 9 soul rings lit up at the same time. Rank 2 Static Domain. After he shouted, Gui Dolua released a silver light that was different from the black fog from before. It was a brilliant silver flame, and in an instant, it had already surrounded his body. At the same time, the Chrysanthemum Dolua Yuguan, who was beside him, also released a layer of golden flames. Under everyone's gazes, Gui Mei and Yuguan stood facing each other. Their 4 hands clasped together, and their bodies suddenly fused together. A total of 18 soul rings instantly condensed into a huge gold and silver halo that quietly flew out. Everyone felt their vision blur, and suddenly, the world seemed to have turned gold and silver. Everything around them seemed to have stopped at this moment. Martial Soul Fusion Skill. The moment the gold and silver halo appeared, Yu Xiaojing shouted 5 heavy syllables. He looked at Chu Bei with a little more worry in his eyes. Ningfengji, Gu Rong, Dai Tianya and the others frowned. Evidently, they had heard of Gui Mei and Yuguan's martial soul fusion skill. In the current continent there were very few soul masters who could use martial soul fusion skills, and even fewer titled Doloa who could use martial soul fusion skills. Coincidentally, Gui Mei and Yuguan were existences who could use martial soul fusion skills. Almost instantly, the Gui Doloa and the Chrysanthemum Doloa's bodies disappeared when the gold and silver halo formed. When the 2 Doloa reappeared, they were already on Chu Bei's left and right. Freeze! In the next moment, the 2 of them pointed their palms at Chu Bei at the same time, and shouted a single word. Following this, the gold and silver halo pierced through the void and enveloped Chu Bei's body in the blink of an eye. The situation is not good. Their martial soul fusion skill is a control-type ability, and your boss is being controlled because of his carelessness. Looking at the gold and silver halo above Chu Bei's head, Yu Xiaojing's pupils suddenly shrank, and the worry on his face became even more apparent. Uncle Gang, you don't have to worry. Boss will be fine. Tang San tiptoed and patted Yu Xiaojing's shoulder, giving him a reassuring look. Boss is super strong. Wang Fan echoed. You don't understand how terrifying a martial soul fusion skill is, especially when it's used by two titled Doluo. If he had been wary of this move from the start, he might have been able to avoid it and have a chance to defeat them. However, I'm afraid it's too late now. Yu Xiaojing took a deep breath. He had studied martial soul theory for many years, and his understanding was far more thorough than these kids. After a moment, his gaze returned to the battle in the sky, and his fists were tightly clenched. No matter how strong they are, can they be stronger than a rank 99 ultimate Doluo? Xiao Wu glanced at Yu Xiaojing and said, in the City of Massacre, they had personally witnessed their boss defeat the rank 99 King of Massacre. What do you mean? Your boss defeated an ultimate Doluo? Yu Xiaojing's gaze returned to Xiao Wu, and he immediately asked. Xiao Wu shrugged, and didn't reply. That person's methods are strong and strange, but his alertness seems to be a little lacking. Dugabo, Wan Yang, and the rest of the titled Doluo looked at each other. If they were in Hu Yuhao's shoes, they would definitely avoid the martial soul fusion skill of the Ghost Doluo and Chrysanthemum Doluo. At least they wouldn't be as helpless as their opponents. Looking at the controlled Chu Bei in the sky, Bibi Dong shook his head, and the seriousness on his face disappeared. Your Excellency, you're too arrogant. Not to mention you, even that old man from the Elder Hall wouldn't underestimate the two of us. Seeing Chu Bei being controlled by the gold and silver rings, Yu Guan and Gui Mei looked at each other and smiled. There was joy between their brows. Not to mention Chu Bei, even the strongest person in the Hall of Souls, the peak Doluo 1000 Daos Flow, was hit by the gold and silver rings on purpose to test their martial soul fusion skill, and was restrained for 2 whole minutes. In the next moment, their 9th soul rings lit up at the same time. Broken chrysanthemum, wounded everywhere, heartbroken flowers fall. Yu Guan's strange velvet chrysanthemum exploded, and turned into petals that filled the sky. The petals intertwined and instantly formed a huge tornado that swept towards Chu Bei, who was under the gold and silver rings. Ghostly possession. Almost at the same time, Gui Mei shouted, and a huge illusory black shadow appeared behind him. The black shadow raised its right palm and slapped towards Chu Bei. The two of them had used the same attack on the 9-story Golden Pagoda earlier. Because of the Golden Pagoda's strong defenses, they couldn't do anything. However, Chu Bei had a mortal body, and was controlled by their martial soul fusion skill, so he couldn't move. There was no way he could withstand their attacks. As everyone watched, the two titled Doluo's strongest attacks, one palm and one tornado, broke through the air and blasted towards Chu Bei with terrifying might. Wherever they passed, the void rumbled, and pitch-black cracks started to spread. However, just as the two Doluo's attacks were about to land on Chu Bei's body, Chu Bei's figure suddenly changed, and his entire body released brilliant golden light. This isn't a soul skill at all. After seeing Chu Bei's transformation, the powerful individuals from the various powers raised their heads and subconsciously swallowed their saliva. Right now, Chu Bei's entire body had turned into a huge palm that was 100 meters in diameter. Compared to this huge palm, the Gui Doluo and Ju Doluo's gold and silver rings seemed very small. However, this palm wasn't a human's palm, but a type of golden metal. On the back of the palm, scriptures flashed and crackled non-stop. A ball of pure white light that resembled the moon appeared in the center of the palm, and it exuded a holy aura. All of a sudden, the giant golden palm rose up and smacked the gold and silver rings with unerring accuracy. Kacha! As the two of them collided, the gold and silver rings dissipated into a rain of light. Before everyone could react, the huge golden palm swept horizontally again, and met the Gui Doluo and Ju Doluo's strongest attacks. Amidst the booms, the Ghost Doluo and Chrysanthemum Doluo's attacks were like child's play as they were instantly destroyed. Impossible! You've clearly been immobilized, how can you? Yu Guan's and Gui Mei's eyes suddenly narrowed as they watched the huge golden palm continue to slam over. However, before they could do anything, an incomparably terrifying energy had already shattered the defensive barrier around them and violently struck their bodies. Boom! Under the attack of the huge golden palm, Yu Guan and Gui Mei streaked across the sky with lightning speed and crashed into a mountain 100 meters away. Under the huge impact, the mountain collapsed with a loud bang. Rocks flew everywhere, and dust filled the sky. From the moment Yu Guan and Gui Mei unleashed their strongest attacks to the moment Chu Bei transformed into a huge golden palm and sent the two of them flying, it seemed like a long process, but it actually happened in the blink of an eye. As they looked at the collapsed mountain in the distance, everyone on Heaven's Vault Peak fell silent. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the huge golden palm in the sky, which was surrounded by mysterious scriptures. Several seconds later, a figure from the Martial Soul Hall transformed into a long streak of light and shot out towards the collapsed mountain. When everyone saw that figure bring back the Gui Dolua and Ju Dolua, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. At this moment, Yu Guan and Gui Mei were completely covered in blood. Their torn clothes were dyed red, and it was even possible to vaguely see that their chests were deeply sunken in. Part of their internal organs were exposed, and they looked extremely miserable. Pope, the Ju Dolua and Gui Dolua are dead. After checking Yu Guan and Gui Mei's vital signs, that figure knelt in front of Bibi Dong, and spoke with a trembling voice. I got it. Bibi Dong's expression was still calm, but one could tell that his heart was pounding from the way his hand was trembling as he held the scepter. After hearing this, Dubu Bo, Wan Yang, Li Hai, and the rest of the titled Dolu around the 9-story golden pagoda looked at each other. After that, they all looked at Yu Guan and Gui Mei's corpses. The atmosphere was extremely tense. Whether it was Yu Guan or Gui Mei, both of them were stronger than any of them. Furthermore, they had unleashed their martial soul skills, and they didn't even have the ability to resist them. However, the two of them had died so easily at the hands of that mysterious person. Ever since they became titled Dolua, they were at the top of the Dolua continent's pyramid, and they were high and mighty. Not to mention death, even being injured was something that happened many years ago. In their eyes, even if they died, they would die naturally from old age. This was because titled Dolua were more or less equal in strength, and no one would really fight to the death. Power, money, status, they had all of it. What else was worth exchanging their lives for? However, right now, they had personally witnessed the deaths of Yu Guan and Gui Mei, who were both titled Dolua. At this moment, they suddenly felt that even though they had become titled Dolua, death was still very close to them. It was so close that they might have made the wrong choice. Wasn't that mysterious person immobilized? How can he still attack? He killed Gui Dolua and Ju Dolua. What rank is he? Now, the Martial Soul Hall won't rest until he's dead. Let's see how the Pope deals with this. Around the call, the various powers were all looking at Chu Bei, who had already reverted back to his original appearance. While they were shocked, they were also discussing intensely. Uncle Gang, I told you that boss would be fine. You were worried for nothing. Tang San patted Yu Xiaozhang's shoulder again. This time, Yu Xiaozhang didn't retort. He was already so stunned by what had happened that he couldn't describe it with words. The martial soul theory that he had studied for decades had become useless in front of this mysterious man. In fact, he even started to suspect that his martial soul theory was wrong from the start. With such means, it's no wonder you dared to threaten me. A cold voice drifted from the top of Heaven Vault Mountain. Bibi Dong glanced at Yu Guan and Gui Mei's corpses. His expression was gloomy as he slowly rose into the air and hovered in front of Chu Bei. Meeting Bibi Dong's gaze, Chu Bei's expression was indifferent. You want to take revenge for them? I want to spar with you. Bibi Dong's eyes were filled with killing intent. As his cold voice sounded, he stabbed the scepter in his hand into the ground below. In the next moment, Bibi Dong's body shone with a strange light. Then, his legs disappeared. From his abdomen downwards he turned into a huge sphere. 8 thick and long legs grew out from this sphere. Large tufts of green hair grew on them. The sticky liquid on the green hair dripped from the sky and onto the ground. It constantly made popping sounds as it corroded the ground. Gradually, the skin on his upper body started to be covered by a layer of purplish-black armor. Even his face was covered by a piece of armor. Under his eyes, 4 small eyes grew out. At this moment, the holy aura on Bibi Dong's body dissipated. No matter how one looked at it, he was no longer the martial spirit hall's pope. Instead, he looked more like a huge poisonous spider. She looks so disgusting. Looking at the scene on the battlefield, Ning Rongrong looked like she wanted to vomit. I didn't expect the martial spirit hall's pope to have such a martial soul. Dai Mubai couldn't help but mutter. Almost at the same time, the various powers on the battlefield started to discuss Bibi Dong's appearance. Even the poisoned Doluo, Dugubo, and the other Doluo couldn't help but frown. Evidently, this was their first time seeing Bibi Dong unleash his martial soul. Bibi Dong ignored the discussions around him and snorted coldly again. The reason why she wasn't willing to reveal her martial soul was because she looked too ugly after unleashing her martial soul. Because her position was already at the peak of the continent, she only needed to give out orders for the matters that she encountered on a daily basis. However, because of this mysterious existence who had killed Yu Guan and Gui Mei, she had no choice but to act personally. Within the brilliant light, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 and red soul rings lined up neatly on Bibi Dong's body. The rumors are true. She really does have 100,000-year soul ring. Ning Fingji, Gu Rong, and the others looked at each other with astonishment in their eyes. Compared to a 10,000-year soul ring, a 100,000-year soul ring was a qualitative leap. The soul skills it possessed were also far more terrifying than those of a 10,000-year soul ring. The reason why they were so shocked was that Bibi Dong's strength was so strong that he could actually kill a 100,000-year soul beast. Seeing the 100,000-year soul ring light up on Bibi Dong's body, Xiao Wu, who was beside Tang San, trembled visibly. Her eyes turned red. Let me have a taste of your skills. On the battlefield, Bibi Dong stared coldly at Chu Bei in his spider form. His 2 large eyes and 4 small eyes were especially terrifying. After Cold in the Forest finished speaking, a black light spread out from Bibi Dong's body and enveloped the entire Tsangqiong Peak in an instant. This is a domain! Standing in the black light, Dugu Bo's pupils suddenly shrank. He immediately circulated his soul power to resist the invasion of the black light. Gu Rong, Ning Fingji, Dai Tianya, and the other titled Doluo did the same. Is this the strength of the martial soul hall's pope? Some of the weaker disciples of the forces present began to tremble uncontrollably under the black light, and their faces turned pale. Chapter 214. Around the call, as the powerful individuals from the various organizations were still in shock from Bibi Dong's domain, a red light spread from her body and overlapped with the black light from before. Dual domains! The leaders of the various organizations exclaimed when they felt the circulation of their soul force stagnate once again. They stared at Bibi Dong with incredulity in their eyes. Even after becoming a titled Doluo, domains were still an unattainable ability. Being able to obtain one domain was already a gift from the heavens. However, Pope Bibi Dong had 2 domains. The black light and the red light intertwined. Everyone who was within this light couldn't help but feel death, bloodlust, massacre, fear, and all sorts of negative emotions. It's only been a few years, and she's already so strong? Yu Xiaojing stared at Bibi Dong in a daze. Is this your death domain and killer god domain? Chu Bei asked Bibi Dong calmly. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Bibi Dong's body trembled slightly. She didn't expect that her dual domain would be seen through by the other party. Tang San, don't you think that her second domain is similar to the King of Massacre's domain? Xiao Wu tugged at the corner of Tang San's shirt and asked. Because of Chu Bei's protection, they weren't affected by Bibi Dong's dual domains. Tang San nodded slightly. Even if it's not the same domain, it should be similar. However, in terms of domains, her domain isn't as good as my great-grandfather's. Chu Bei glanced at Tang San and Xiao Wu. There was a look of approval in his eyes. The King of Massacre's massacre domain had already materialized into a blood fog. However, Bibi Dong's domain was still in the formless light stage. Spider Empress clone! Bibi Dong shouted softly. An intense purple light shone from the surface of her body. At the same time, her eighth black soul ring started to shine. The blinding purple light solidified on her left side. As the light flickered, a Spider Empress clone that looked exactly like her body appeared. Death Spiderweb! Just as the Spider Empress clone formed, Bibi Dong's third soul ring started to shine. She opened her mouth and spat out 2 purple spiderwebs. The purple spiderweb shrouded Chu Bei's position with dense purple qi, and rapidly expanded in the process of flashing. The instant the spiderweb flew towards Chu Bei, the Spider Emperor clone transformed into a ball of purple light. It opened its mouth and followed closely behind the spiderweb towards Chu Bei. Wherever it passed, the void trembled, as if it had been cut open by some kind of sharp weapon, leaving behind a long spatial crack. Bramble spider armor! Bibi Dong's fourth soul ring lit up, and long purplish-black spikes that were more than a meter long covered every inch of his body. The purple shell on his body also became exceptionally thick. At practically the same time, his figure vanished from the spot and appeared behind the Spider Emperor's clone. Death imprisonment! As his fifth soul ring lit up, purple ripples appeared in the air around his body. As the ripples swept through the air instantly congealed, and it seemed to possess a temporary sealing effect similar to the Chrysanthemum Dolua and Ghost Dolua's martial soul fusion skill. Among the 4 soul skills, Death Imprisonment was the last to be used, but it was the fastest. In the blink of an eye, the purple ripples appeared in front of Chu Bei. No wonder he's the Pope of the Martial Soul Hall. I didn't expect his battle awareness to be so terrifying at such a young age. Gu Rong, Dugu Bo, Dai Tianya and the rest looked at each other as they watched Bibi Dong use 4 soul skills in a row. There was a look of astonishment in their eyes. First, he used his 5th soul skill, Death Imprisonment, to temporarily seal his opponent. Then, he used his 3rd soul skill, Death Spiderweb, to completely bind his opponent. After that, he used his 8th soul skill, Spider Emperor's Clone, to self-destruct his opponent. Finally, he used his 4th soul skill, Bramble Spider Armor, to inject poison into his opponent. Even if he was up against someone stronger than him, it would be difficult for the latter to withstand such a series of soul skills. This battle plan is not bad. As he watched Bibi Dong's combo, Chu Bei's lips curled into a smile. He really couldn't bear to destroy his opponent's ingenious and logical combo. Following this, Chu Bei didn't dodge or evade. He pointed his finger lightly and placed his hands behind his back, allowing his opponent's series of soul skills to hit him. Do you not put me in your eyes at all? Arrogant and conceited people don't live for long. As she looked at Chu Bei, who was still calm and composed, Bibi Dong felt an indescribable anger rise in her heart. She had never been looked down upon like this before. Chu Bei smiled and revealed his snow-white teeth at Bibi Dong. Other than the finger he pointed at her earlier, he didn't do anything else. Below them, Yu Xiaozheng's heart tightened. However, when he saw Tang San and Xiao Wu's confident looks, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Under everyone's gazes, just as Bibi Dong's 5th soul skill, Death Imprisonment, was about to hit Chu Bei's body, a huge pitch-black hole suddenly appeared in the void where Chu Bei had pointed at. From the hole, a pitch-black flame surged out. The moment this pitch-black flame appeared, the void in front of Chu Bei distorted and collapsed. Chi. When the purple ripple was burned by the pitch-black flame and reached Chu Bei, its effect was like a cool breeze. It only blew at Chu Bei's robes and hair, but it didn't have any effect on his body. After the ripple, the 10-meter-long death spiderweb arrived in front of Chu Bei. However, before the spiderweb could wrap around Chu Bei's body, it was met with a ball of pitch-black flame. Then, It mysteriously disintegrated and turned into specks of light that dissipated. The frightening green venom on the spiderweb also evaporated into thin air. Eh? Seeing that her two soul skills had failed one after another, and seeing that terrifying pitch-black flame, Bibi Dong furrowed her brows and muttered softly. After that, Bibi Dong took a deep breath and tried her best to calm down. The moment her eighth soul skill, Spider Emperor's clone, reached Chu Bei, she controlled it to self-destruct. Boom! The huge spider was like a nuclear bomb, exploding with a loud bang, bringing with it a resplendent and dazzling purple light. However, amidst the earth-shattering explosion, the place where the explosion occurred seemed to have been separated into two different worlds. The void around Chu Bei exploded, and patches of spatial cracks extended outwards. The terrifying shockwaves even caused countless spatial fragments to fly into the air. Even Dugubo and the other titled Doloa subconsciously lit up their soul rings to resist the shockwaves from the explosion. The area where Chu Bei and the pitch-black flame were at seemed to have become a vacuum. When she looked at Chu Bei again, she realized that his clothes weren't damaged at all. He still maintained his calm and composed posture, and his expression was as if the explosion didn't even happen. How is this possible? Bibi Dong sized up the pitch-black flame again, and her brows furrowed deeper and deeper. At this moment, her main body also arrived in front of Chu Bei. When she unleashed her fourth soul skill, Thorny Spider Armor, she finally understood. The ball of pitch-black flame in front of her opponent didn't just have an unbearably high temperature, it also had a strange and terrifying devouring power. This ball of black flame floated in front of her opponent, and was like a black hole that could devour everything in the world. The energy from the explosion of the Spider Emperor's avatar was immediately devoured by the strange black flames. When she unleashed her fourth soul skill, Thorny Spider Armor, her guess was proven right. Her thorny spider armor didn't even get within a meter of her opponent before the devouring power of the pitch-black flame destroyed it. You're done with your combo? Are there any more? Chu Bei smiled as he looked at Bibi Dong, who had a serious expression on her face. This cluster of black flames was the Nihility Devouring Flame, which was ranked second on the Heavenly Flame ranking that he had obtained in the battle Break the Heavens plane. He was only barely able to use these heavenly flames that he had obtained in battle after his soul power had reached rank 80 in the Doloa continent. Fortunately, the strength of these strange flames wasn't directly related to his own strength. It was only due to the difference in his strength that he could use them for battle. Sect Master Ning, what kind of flame is that? It actually dispelled Bibi Dong's combo. Dai Tianya frowned and turned to look at Ning Fingji, who was beside him, with confusion in his eyes. Ning Fingji shook his head. I don't even know what his martial soul is, let alone that strange black flame. Boss Chu was like a ball of fog. Not to mention completely seeing through him, they couldn't even see through a corner of the fog. Every move he made was beyond their understanding. What was even more frightening was that they hadn't seen his martial soul since the beginning, let alone his soul ring. When they looked at Yu Xiaojing again, his mouth was wide open, and his eyes were wide open. His exaggerated expression was completely like a fanba who had seen his idol. If you don't have any more trump cards? Then it's my turn. On the battlefield, a calm and teasing voice sounded in Bibi Dong's ears. When he heard this, Bibi Dong's entire body turned cold, and an inexplicable sense of danger surged in his heart. Chu Bei had unknowingly activated the Nihility Devouring Flame, and used the latter's flames to form a huge black blade. There were thousands of pitch-black fire snakes around the blade, and just one look was enough to send chills down one's spine. Under Chu Bei's control, the black blade slashed towards Bibi Dong. Suddenly, an energy blade light that was mixed with black flames burst from the blade, and tore through the void. It instantly appeared in front of Bibi Dong. Bibi Dong's pupils shrank when he sensed the terrifying aura of the blade light. He didn't have time to think, and immediately lit up his ninth soul ring. Chi La! The black blade light directly sliced open Bibi Dong's thick purple shell. In the sky, the huge spider that Bibi Dong had transformed into was sliced into two from the middle, and the cut was extremely smooth. The black blade light that pierced through continued to sweep forward until it exploded in the sky, and brought about a pitch-black hole that was almost 100 meters wide. Black flames that had yet to dissipate spread from the hole. Even though they were several kilometers away, everyone on the top of Heaven's Vault Mountain still felt a chill on their faces, and they felt a piercing pain. Is the Martial Soul Hall's Pope dead? Is that mysterious person's cultivation already so high? Even Pope Bibi Dong isn't his match. The Ghost Dolua, the Chrysanthemum Dolua, and the Pope have died one after another. The Martial Soul Hall has suffered heavy losses. I'm afraid the Martial Soul Hall will be in chaos soon. All of this is because of that mysterious person. Don't forget that the Martial Soul Hall still has the Dolua Hall. There's a peak-level Dolua there. Even if the Pope is dead, the Martial Soul Hall won't be in chaos. Look, Pope Bibi Dong's corpse is moving. The powerful individuals from the various factions looked at Bibi Dong's corpse that had been cut in half. Amidst intense discussions, the two halves of the corpse that were originally falling vertically suddenly stopped descending and hovered in the air. In the next moment, the purple demonic patterns on the two halves of the corpse released a dazzling light under countless astonished gazes. Then, they moved closer to each other and slowly merged together. Not long after, the corpse that had been cut in half returned to its original shape. However, the purple demonic patterns on its body had an additional tinge of faint gold. Once his body recovered, Bibi Dong immediately removed his martial soul true body and returned to his original body. With a puff, Bibi Dong spat out a mouthful of golden blood. His body shook violently, and he looked at Chu Bei with a little more fear in his eyes. She was very glad that her intuition was accurate. Even though she was uncertain, she still lit up her 9th soul ring. The result also told her that her decision was right. Although she had expended a lot of soul power, her life was saved. Thinking about what would have happened if she hadn't used her 9th soul ring, she was still afraid. The 9th soul skill of the Death Spider Emperor that she had used was called Undying Body. Even if her body was shattered by the enemy's attack, she could still reassemble. Of course, every time she used her 9th soul ring, she would need to consume a part of her blood essence. Furthermore, she had to use it at the most appropriate time. Just like the attack from the other party earlier, if she had hesitated for a second, she would have ended up in a different situation. After all, the power of the other party's blade was enough to kill her instantly. The Pope is not dead, that's great. Seeing that Bibi Dong was resurrected, everyone from the Martial Soul Hall immediately walked out of their sorrow with excitement on their faces. Dugubo, Dai Tianya, and the others looked at Bibi Dong with envy in their eyes. The soul skill of this 100,000-year soul beast was indeed heaven-defying. If used at the right time, it would be a true life-saving skill. I thought you would be reluctant to use it because of the consumption of your blood essence. Looking at the slightly pale Bibi Dong, Chu Bei smiled faintly. Don't tell me you don't consume any soul power when using this strange black flame? Bibi Dong rose to the same height as Chu Bei again and snorted coldly. You're talking about consumption with me? Chu Bei laughed. He was very pleased with himself. Even if he didn't use the Nihility Devouring Flame, he could still use his willpower. Given that the other party's abilities weren't even comparable to Tang Chen's, it would be easy for him to kill a few hundred of them. Bibi Dong glanced at the black blade in Chu Bei's hand that was raised again. As she recalled the blade light that he had unleashed earlier, which had the power to destroy heaven and earth, she couldn't help but retreat 100 meters. After distancing herself from Chu Bei, Bibi Dong's body changed again. The spiderweb pattern on her forehead instantly turned dark green, and a layer of crystalline dark green light spread from her body. This time, her legs didn't change, but 3 pairs of dark green spider legs appeared on her back. Her arms also turned into long dark green spears, and her lower body was completely covered by a layer of dark green light. She was different from the Death Spider Emperor from before. This was another huge spider. At the same time, black, red, 7 soul rings appeared on her body. Twin martial souls! Ning Fingji's gaze focused, and he couldn't help but exclaim. Dugubo, Dai Tianya, and the other titled Dolo were also astonished. They didn't just lose their composure because of her first, second, and third soul rings, but also because her sixth soul ring had turned red. This meant that the next 8 or 9 soul rings that she obtained would all be 100,000-year soul rings. For some reason, they were grateful to this mysterious person who had appeared out of nowhere on the battlefield. Because of this person, Bibi Dong had exposed her trump cards and displayed her true abilities. It was also because of this that they understood how strong Bibi Dong was, and realized the gap between them and her. Little San, do you see that? She's the person with twin martial souls that I mentioned to you before. Chu Bei looked at Tang San, and his calm voice rang in the latter's ears. From what you're saying, does that fellow also have twin martial souls? Following Chu Bei's gaze, Bibi Dong glanced in Tang San's direction and muttered. Her first martial soul was the Death Spider Emperor, and her second martial soul was the Soul-Devouring Spider Emperor. Demon Spider Summoning! Following Bibi Dong's shout, his third soul ring lit up. Following this, a dark green light started to spread in the air. In the light, dark green poisonous spiders with a diameter of about 10 centimeters drilled out one after another. These dark green poisonous spiders looked a little illusory, and were formed by the death aura released by Bibi Dong. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Under Bibi Dong's control, the dense poisonous spiders swarmed towards Chu Bei. If the soul skills of her first martial soul were inclined towards close combat, then the soul skills of her second martial soul were more inclined towards strange and changeable. After witnessing the might of Chu Bei's blade, Bibi Dong did not hesitate to choose to put a sufficient distance between himself and his opponent, thus giving himself a chance to dodge. As for the demon spider summoning, it was used to consume her opponent's soul power until she couldn't use the strange pitch-black flames anymore. Looking at the dark green poisonous spiders swarming towards him, Chu Bei's expression changed slightly. Of course, it wasn't because he was afraid, but because these poisonous spiders were too frightening and disgusting. As these poisonous spiders pounced towards him, Chu Bei drew on the Nihility devouring flame, and couldn't wait to release tens of millions of pitch-black fire snakes. Amidst the crackling sounds, the fire snake army covered the sky as they flew towards the poisonous spiders. Compared to the poisonous spiders, the fire snake army was faster, there were more of them, and they covered a wider area. Kaji, 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 in the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of poisonous spiders were engulfed by the fire snake army, and they exploded into dark green light in the mouths of the fire snakes. Bibi Dong's eyes were wide open. Ever since she became the Martial Soul Hall's Pope, there wasn't much that could stir her emotions. However, today, this mysterious person of unknown origin had repeatedly made her calm state of mind reach a climax. Not only were his attacks terrifying, but they were also endless. She even suspected whether he had twin martial souls and had 18 soul skills. Chapter 215. On the battlefield, Bibi Dong heaved a sigh of relief. After recovering from her shock, she let out a shrill howl towards the sky. In the next moment, the spiderweb-like demonic pattern on her forehead instantly transformed into a green eye. A pale green beam of light shot out from it, and shot towards Chu Bei's head. This wasn't Bibi Dong's soul skill, but her spiritual immunity skull's soul skill, True World. Simply put, this was a soul skill that attacked the spirit. It didn't harm the physical body, but it could directly attack a person's spirit. Under normal circumstances, Bibi Dong wouldn't use this skull skill because it consumed a lot of spiritual power. It needed to consume a third of her spiritual power to use it. However, her series of soul skills didn't have any effect on her opponent. She had no choice but to change her mind and attack his spirit. The system has detected a spirit attack from the outside world. Would the host like to reflect 3 times the damage? A mechanical voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Chu Bei was stunned for a moment before a mocking smile appeared on his face. Almost at the same time, Chu Bei gave her a choice. A similar situation had happened in the Do-Chi continent before. However, Gu Yuan was testing him then. With the system's voice twice, Chu Bei had some guesses. As the system was located in his sea of consciousness, the system would act on its behalf if someone attacked his spirit. After all, if his sea of consciousness was damaged, the system would also be damaged. Puchi. When Bibi Dong's spiritual skull hit Chu Bei, the latter was safe and sound. However, she staggered and spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face turned pale. A messy aura surged out from her body and tore the space around her apart. So you know how to. Bibi Dong's aura became weak. Her entire body trembled and she had no choice but to land on the ground. Did they fight again just now? Dugu Bo, Dai Tianya, and the rest of the titled Dolua looked at Bibi Dong, who had a pained expression on her face. They then looked at Chu Bei, who was calm and composed. There was a playful smile on their faces, but there was confusion between their brows. If I'm not wrong, they should have had a soul skill competition just now. However, Bibi Dong lost miserably. Gu Rong said, My 7th soul skill is also a spirit-type attack. Perhaps it can't cause as much damage as his, but I know that when two people unleash a spirit-type attack at the same time, if their spiritual powers are similar, both of their spirits will be shaken. Not only one person should be injured. You mean, in terms of spiritual energy, the mysterious man is one level higher than Bai Dong? Dai Mubai asked tentatively. In theory, yes. Gu Rong nodded and then glanced in Chu Bei's direction. The respect in his eyes deepened. Are you going to continue watching as bystanders? Don't forget, our goal is the treasure land below. If you can't defeat him, don't even think about touching any of the spirit plants below. Bibi Dong's cold gaze swept across Dugu Bo, Li Hai, and the others. His cold voice reverberated throughout Heaven's Vault Mountain. After hearing Bibi Dong's words, Dugu Bo, Lin Bin, Wan Yang, and the others looked at each other. Bibi Dong's words made sense. If it was for the immortal plants below, they were indeed tied to the same boat. However, they hesitated when they remembered that their common enemy was this mysterious man with strange means and incredible strength. After all, this man was too powerful. He was so powerful that even Bibi Dong was no match for him. Sir, the Elephant Armor sect has no intention of being your enemy. I wonder if you're willing to let me pick 2 spirit plants. After I'm done, the Elephant Armor sect will leave immediately. Lin Bin pondered for a moment before he stepped forward and cupped his fists in Chu Bei's direction. My thoughts are the same as sect leader Lin's. As long as we can pick a few spirit plants, we'll leave immediately. Wan Yang from the Fire Leopard sect, Li Hai from the Wind Sword sect, and Dugu Bo from the Fire Leopard sect spoke one after another. Only Dai Tianya from the White Tiger sect looked hesitant. As for Ning Fingji and Gu Rong, from their expressions, they didn't seem to want to fight with Chu Bei for this treasure land. Are you scared to this extent? You're titled Dolua after all. Don't you even have the courage to fight? Bibi Dong looked at Dugu Bo, Wan Yang, Lin Bin and the others with disdain. He mocked and ridiculed them. Dugu Bo, Wan Yang and the others ignored Bibi Dong's mockery. They looked at Chu Bei calmly and waited for his reply. No. However, Chu Bei shook his head decisively and rejected them without any hesitation. You can't take anything from this treasure land. If you want to take it, show me what you're capable of. Since he's rejected all of you, shouldn't all of you be on my side? Bibi Dong laughed sarcastically. In the next moment, he roared furiously. The 6 spider spears on his back were stabbed into the ground as he shook his arms. Streaks of purplish and green gas flowed rapidly around Bibi Dong's body. Although he looked like he was in pain, his aura became stronger. Eternal creation. Bibi Dong's eyes flashed coldly. He bore with the pain from his injuries as his 6th soul ring shone brightly. In the blink of an eye, her martial soul true body seemed to have transformed into a piece of green jade. He raised his 2 sides at the same time. A spot of green light spread, and the sides lit up as they slashed out diagonally. In the next moment, A huge fork-shaped ripple went straight for Chu Bei. Eternal creation was 100,000 years soul's skill. It was also BB Dong's strongest single-target attack. Once hit, the injuries would spread endlessly. He could only rely on his soul power to resist until his soul power was depleted and he died. No matter where it touched his body, it would be fatal. Sir, I'll say it again. I have no intention of becoming your enemy. However, I have to apologize for the sake of this spiritual plant. The moment Lin Bin finished speaking, his ninth soul ring lit up, and he transformed into an enormous ancient mammoth elephant. His elephant hooves, which contained terrifying power, kicked towards Chu Bei. Jade phosphorus divine light. After seeing Lin Bin attack, Bo didn't hesitate. He turned into a huge python and whipped his tail towards Chu Bei. The space where his tail swept across collapsed and rumbled. Leopard flame! Wan Yang turned into a scarlet-red cheetah. His ninth soul ring flashed, and a flaming leopard of the same size surged out from his body towards Chu Bei. Netherworld dual sword kill! Li Hai glanced coldly at Chu Bei. His aura was at its peak, and his killing intent surged. At the same time, two light blue swords appeared in his palms. They stabbed towards Chu Bei. Chapter 216. Uncle, don't make a move! Seeing Bo and the rest make a move, Dai Mubai hurriedly stopped Dai Tianya, as if he was afraid that Bo and the rest would join the battle. Dai Tianya looked at Dai Mubai before looking at Chu Bei, who was leisurely on the battlefield. He shook his head and sighed, but didn't make a move. It's good that all of you come at me together. It saves me the trouble. Seeing Bo, Li Hai, and the rest besieging him, Chu Bei was still calm and composed. After he spoke calmly, a slender blade appeared in his right hand, and he swung it down. Boom! Just as Chu Bei swung his blade, a deafening sound resonated in the sky above Heaven Vault Mountain. Following which, flowing light appeared, and the wind and clouds surged. Suddenly, streaks of strange, pitch-black lightning surged out from the black clouds. Some were ball-shaped, some were snake-shaped, and all kinds of weird shapes. The sound of thunder kept on ringing, and it was very frightening. Bibi Dong, Bo, and the rest of the top powerhouses hurriedly looked up after hearing the commotion above them. They saw a strange river flowing in the sky, and light lingered around it as it flowed into the sky. Is he really human with such means? Looking at the strange phenomenon in the sky, Dai Tianya, who didn't make a move, muttered to himself. Yu Xiaozheng's mouth was wide open, and his stiff expression was a little wooden. At this moment, he was already extremely shocked. Boss is really ridiculously strong! As for Tang San, Wang Fan, Ning Rongrong, Dai Mubai, and the rest, they were very excited. Their admiration for Chu Bei was even stronger. Rumble! Amidst the rolling thunder, 5 huge gaps suddenly appeared in the strange river. Below each gap was the 5 tidal Dolo who were attacking him. Seeing the gaps that suddenly appeared above their heads, Bibi Dong, Bo, Wan Yang, Lin Bin, and Li Hai felt their hearts tremble. They subconsciously raised their strongest defenses, and at the same time, unleashed their attacks towards the gaps. However, before the attack could enter the gap, red light filled the gap, and a scorching hot meteorite smashed down. The meteorite was surrounded by lightning, and under its light, Bibi Dong, Bo, and the others suddenly found themselves imprisoned by some kind of invisible force. Even though he could still circulate his soul force, he couldn't move his body at all. Bang! The 5 giant meteors struck the 5 tidal Doloa at almost the same time. Booms rang out in unison, and an aura of destruction surged out from the void. Perhaps it was Chu Bei's deliberate control, but compared to the meteorite above Bibi Dong, the meteorite above Bo, Wan Yang, and the others released a much weaker aura. Even so, Bo, Wan Yang, Lin Bin, and Li Hai still smashed into the 9-story golden pagoda like cannonballs under the bombardment of the terrifying meteorites. At the moment of the collision, the originally calm and vigorous auras of the four fell to the lowest point. Poochie! Their clothes were torn to pieces, and they spat out fresh blood. As for Bibi Dong, because the meteorite that struck her was the strongest and most terrifying, her body was instantly smashed into countless pieces of flesh. Fortunately, her ninth soul ring lit up in time, and these pieces of flesh shone with a hazy glow, and started to gather together. After a brief moment, Dugu Bo, Wan Yang, and the others endured their injuries and returned to the sky. When they saw Bibi Dong, who had been turned into a pile of flesh, their pupils shrank, and a look of fear appeared in their eyes. When they looked at Chu Bei again, their eyes were filled with gratitude. At their level, they naturally didn't think that their defenses were stronger than Bibi Dong's. It was just that the mysterious person had deliberately held back against the four of them. If their meteorite was the same as the one above Bibi Dong, they would have ended up like Bibi Dong, and been turned into a pile of flesh and blood. As they thought until here, the four of them lifted their heads to look at the giant meteorite that was still hovering in the sky, and they shuddered. The energy contained in this meteorite wasn't something that they could resist. The three sect leaders, the poisoned Doloa, and the martial Soul Hall's Pope were actually defeated. What's that mysterious person's level? Could he be a pinnacle Doloa like the Doloa Palace's Thousand Daolu? If not for Pope Bibi Dong's life-saving soul ring, he would probably be dead now. That person is really too terrifying. It seems like this treasure land already belongs to someone. Needless to say, it's definitely his. At the edge of Heaven's Vault Mountain's peak, the powerful individuals from the various powers fixed their gazes on the battlefield in the sky, and they were all dumbfounded. Dai Tianya, who was standing at the side, looked at Bibi Dong, who had turned into a pile of mincemeat that was slowly gathering together, as well as Wan Yang, Dudu Bo, Lin Bin, and Li Hai, whose auras were extremely weak, and his face instantly turned gray. He looked as if he had been struck by lightning, and his entire body was numb. Initially, when he saw Dugu Bo and the others besieging Chu Bei, he was a little hesitant about whether to help. After all, he also wanted a few immortal-grade herbs. After considering that the other party was Dai Mubai's boss, he chose to give up. But now, it seemed like he had to thank Dai Mubai. Otherwise, the best outcome would have been to lose his ability to fight like Dugu Bo and the others. Around the call, the group of powerful individuals stared at Chu Bei in a daze. They knew that after today's battle, the mysterious person on the battlefield would definitely become the target of investigation by the various powers. After a few seconds, Bibi Dong's shattered body recovered once again, but her skin was completely pale at this moment, and even her breathing had become extremely weak. Using her ninth soul skill twice in a row had almost exhausted all of her essence blood. "You've escaped a calamity again," Chu Bei said as he glanced at Bibi Dong indifferently. As his mocking voice sounded, the gravity blade in his right hand trembled slightly. Suddenly, a huge hole appeared above Bibi Dong's head. Golden light filled the air, and a crackling sound of thunder could be heard continuously. Sensing that her body had been imprisoned again, and looking at the meteorite that had appeared above her head with an even more terrifying aura, Bibi Dong shook her head. There was a sense of helplessness between her brows, and a sense of powerlessness arose in her heart. She didn't have any more essence blood to light up her ninth soul ring. "Is this my fate? God, you're so unfair to me!" Bibi Dong stared at the huge hammer above her, and her beautiful eyes were filled with unwillingness. She didn't want to die, not because she was afraid of death, but because her hatred had yet to be released. The angel race was still alive in this world, so how could she be willing to die like this? However, there was no solution to the predicament in front of her. It was all because that mysterious person was too strong, so strong that there was nothing she could do. At this moment, Yu Xiaojing was stunned as if he had been struck by lightning. He only regained his senses when he saw the huge meteorite above Bibi Dong was about to fall again. "Sir, please don't kill Dong Dong." Yu Xiaojing's expression changed abruptly, and he hurriedly knelt in Chu Bei's direction. There was fear in his anxious cries. "It's just death. I don't need you to plead for mercy. Bibi Dong used the last of her strength to shout at Yu Xiaojing. Sir, please let her go. I beg you, as long as you let Dong Nong go, I'm willing to do anything for you. Yu Xiaojing ignored Bibi Dong and continued to plead with Chu Bei. When he met Yu Xiaojing's pleading eyes, Chu Bei sighed and withdrew the killing intent in his eyes. Then, he waved his hand, and the huge meteorite above Bibi Dong's head disappeared. Forget it. For Xiaojing's sake, I'll spare your life this time. Chu Bei's indifferent voice drifted through the air. No, I don't want your pity. Kill me! Bibi Dong first shouted at Chu Bei, and then she stared at Yu Xiaojing with her empty eyes. Her body swayed, and she seemed to have lost her mind. She kept muttering, I don't want to owe you anything. No, why aren't you taking your pulp away? Yu Xiaojing seemed to be afraid that Chu Bei would change his mind, and he couldn't wait to roar in the direction of the Marshal Soul Hall's army. Hearing this, the two soldiers at the front of the Marshal Soul Hall's army looked at each other, and immediately went forward to help Bibi Dong, and quickly left with her. Chu Bei glanced at the Marshal Soul Hall's army in the distance, and waved his right hand. As the gravity blade disappeared, the phenomenon in the distant sky quickly returned to normal. This gravity blade was an ability from the Pirate Plains General, Fujitora, that he had obtained through the system. After being strengthened by the system, this ability was now classified as a top-grade Class 10 commodity. The meteorite attack earlier was one of the methods of this ability. Why are you still here? Don't tell me that you're still coveting this treasure land? Chu Bei stood in the void, and his cold gaze swept across Dugu Bo, Li Hai, and the others. However, if you dare to make a move again, I can't guarantee that you'll still be alive. His cold voice echoed in Lin Bin, Wan Yang, Dugu Bo, and Li Hai's ears, and it was like a demonic voice from hell. After hearing Chu Bei's words, Lin Bin, Wan Yang, Dugu Bo, and Li Hai looked at each other and laughed bitterly. They were very helpless now, and even if they wanted to, they didn't have the strength to deal with a Soul Doluo. Dugu Bo cupped his fists at Chu Bei and said, Sir, we just want to watch you take away the spirit plants on this treasure land. Chu Bei couldn't help but laugh when he saw the stubbornness on Dugu Bo and the others' faces. Chu Bei stepped forward, and arrived above the exquisite pagoda, and pointed his finger. Buzz! The pagoda trembled, and released golden light. In the next moment, the star anise mysterious ice grass, blazing delicate apricot, soul origin flower, extreme wind fire apple tree, and the other top-grade spirit plants, including the delicate silk, all disappeared one after another. In the end, even the ice-firing yang well, which was made up of milky white and vermilion colors, disappeared. You have successfully retrieved the ice-firing yang well and all the treasures around it. You have been rewarded with the right to use Class 11 low-grade commodities once. Battle through the heavens cultivation is increasing. Progress, 77%. Progress, 78%. Progress, 79%. A series of system notifications sounded in Chu Bei's mind. When the last system notification disappeared, the conversion progress had changed from 76% to 84%. As for his soul power, he had jumped from a rank 80 soul sage to a rank 88 soul Dolo. Chapter 217. Sir, we'll take our leave first. Looking at the empty call, Lin Bin, Wan Yang, Li Hai, and the other leaders of the various forces shook their heads and greeted Chu Bei one after another. Then, they left with the experts of their respective sections. Boss Chu, we'll take our leave too. Ning Fingji and Gu Rong looked at each other, then brought Ning Rongrong to Chu Bei. Thank you for giving my daughter this opportunity. Boss, I'll definitely be your most successful agent. I guarantee that the daily sales will reach the upper limit. Before leaving, Ning Rongrong waved her small fist at Chu Bei. Sir, you said that I can also be your agent? Do you still remember? After most of the people had left, Yu Xiaojing looked at Chu Bei nervously and tried to remind him. Chu Bei's gaze landed on Yu Xiaozheng's body as he tapped his finger on the other party's forehead. After that, it was a fixed process. When Chu Bei successfully signed the contract with Yu Xiaozheng, his cultivation conversion progress went from 84% to 91%. As for his soul power, he jumped from a rank 88 soul doloa to a rank 94 title doloa. According to the system's judgment, the cultivation of the Doloa continent and the Duki continent were roughly the same. For example, a soul doloa was equivalent to a do zun. A title doloa was equivalent to a do xing. As for the so-called rank 100 gods, they should be the do di of the Duki continent. This ability is really amazing! Yu Xiaozheng carefully touched the agent ring on his middle finger. With a thought, 10 identical square boxes appeared in front of him. Before coming to Tianqiong Mountain, it was because he had witnessed the scene of Oscar selling the square box that he had followed him all this while, begging him to bring him to see Chu Bei. Mr. Chu, I wonder if I can also be your agent? Seeing that Yu Xiaozheng had become a first-class agent, Dai Tianyao was eager. He quickly walked in front of Chu Bei with anticipation. You and I are not fated to be together. If you need anything, just buy money. Chu Bei gave Dai Tianyao a look. Boss Chu, we'll take our leave as well. You're welcome to visit the White Tiger sect. Dai Tianyao coughed awkwardly and left with the people of the White Tiger sect. Dai Mabai chose to stay. Why haven't you left yet? Chu Bei looked at Dugubo, who had a conflicted expression. Hearing this, Dugubo immediately flew forward. Boss Chu, please cure the poison in my body and my underage granddaughter. At first, he was doubtful that the other party could cure the poison in his body, but after seeing the other party's methods, he firmly believed in the other party. Chu Bei glanced at Dugubo and waved his sleeve. Buzz, the void trembled, and a ripple appeared. A golden disc with a diameter of 1 meter emerged from the ripples, emitting a dazzling light. When the light dissipated, one could clearly see that the disc was divided into 10 regions. Each region flashed with a square box of different colors. Besides that, there was a silver pointer hanging from the disc. There were 7 big words engraved at the top. Rank 9 Lucky Roulette. This is? Dugubo looked at Chu Bei with confusion in his eyes as he looked at the roulette that had appeared out of thin air and was floating in the air. There's a treasure in this box that can cure the poison in you and your granddaughter. Chu Bei looked at Dugubo calmly. Every time you spin it, the price is 4 million soul coins. Other than soul coins, other valuable treasures can be sold for the same price. Hearing the price of 4 million per session, even Dugubo's expression changed. Even so, Dugubo quickly took out all the money and valuable treasures in the soul tool. No matter how valuable money was, it was just a worldly possession. His granddaughter was the most precious thing to him. Ding, the pointer spun. In the end, Dugubo spun a total of 6 sets, which meant that there were 60 square boxes. He opened the poison-repelling 3 immortal water that could cure the poison. Thank you, sir. Dugubo only drank half a bottle of 3 immortal water before he was shocked to discover that the pain in his body had disappeared. After his excitement, he clasped his fists and thanked Chu Bei. Boss, who is he? After Dugubo left, Oscar looked at Chu Bei curiously after he finished sizing up Ma Hongjun. He's our new partner, and also a rank 1 proxy. Before Chu Bei could reply, Tang San explained to Oscar. Shrek's 7 monsters are only missing 1. Looking at the names on the list, Chu Bei's lips curled up into a smile. Right now, there was only 1 rank 1 proxy left. However, when Chu Bei checked the location of the last target through the system map, he was a little surprised. Logically speaking, his next target should be the Star Luo Empire's Zhu residence. However, the other party's current location was in the Holy Soul Village. Don't tell me he's offering himself to me? Chu Bei smiled knowingly. After raising Ma Hongjun and Dugubo's abilities by a large tier, he returned to the Holy Soul Village. Sir, I didn't expect you to return so quickly. Someone came to the village to look for you. As I didn't know when you would return, I wanted them to leave first. Not long after Chu Bei and the rest returned to the Holy Soul village, the village chief heard the commotion and ran over. Behind the village chief, there was a middle-aged man and a girl in black who was about 5 or 6 years old. Xu Qing! Why are you here? Seeing the girl behind the old village chief, the pupils of Dai Mubai, who was following beside Chu Bei, suddenly shrank. His body suddenly quivered and he could not help but exclaim, Brother Mubai, do you know her? Oscar pointed at Zhu Qing as he looked at Dai Mubai and asked curiously, I don't just know her. After saying that, Dai Mubai quickly walked up to the girl in black enthusiastically. Zhu Qing, are you here to look for me? Zhu Qing glanced at Dai Mubai and ignored him. Instead, she walked up to Chu Bei, raised her head, and gritted her teeth. My name is Zhu Qing, and I want to be your representative too. Zhu Qing, the boss's representative selection is predestined. If you're not fated, no matter how much you beg, you won't. Before Dai Mubai could finish his words, Chu Bei waved his hand and interrupted Dai Mubai. Sure. Immediately after, 2 calm syllables came out of Chu Bei's mouth. His voice wasn't loud, but to Dai Mubai, it sounded like thunder. Boss Zhu Qing is also fated with you? After recovering from his shock, Dai Mubai stared at Chu Bei in shock. His face was filled with disbelief. If you can do it, why can't I? Without waiting for Chu Bei to speak, the black-clothed girl coldly glared at Dai Mubai as she let out a clear and cold shout. After meeting Zhu Qing's gaze, Dai Mubai scratched his head and didn't know what to say. Oscar, Tang San, Xiao Wu, and the rest looked at each other before looking at Dai Mubai and Zhu Qing. They clearly knew each other, but they didn't seem to get along. They started to guess their relationship. Host has successfully signed a first to representative, Zhu Qing. Battle through the heavens cultivation conversion is accelerating. Progress 92%, progress 93%, progress 94%. When Zhu Qing dripped her blood on the ring, the system's voice sounded. When the system's voice disappeared, the cultivation conversion progress went from 91% to 97%. As for her soul power, she jumped from a rank 94 titled Soul Sage to a rank 97 titled Doluo. Now it's all done. Looking at the 10 names on the system's first-level agent panel, Chu Bei's lips curled into a smile. The capital of the Heaven Do Empire, 150 kilometers east of Heaven Do City. Behind the mountains was a small village that wasn't very different from the Holy Soul village. Behind the village was a mountain. The mountain itself wasn't very tall, but it was very steep. The entire mountain was almost vertical to the ground, and was very smooth. There weren't any plants on it, and it was actually a stone mountain. Although there weren't any pavilions at the top of the mountain, there was a castle-like building. The building was gray, and looked like a part of the mountain. It almost occupied the entire top of the mountain. This was where the Clear Sky sect, one of the 3 upper sects, was located. I've been in seclusion for too long. I didn't expect such a mysterious and powerful individual to appear on the continent. First, he defeated the sword Dolua in the way of the sword. Then, he fought several titled Dolua and defeated Bibi Dong twice. On the top of the mountain, a figure looked at the strange phenomenon in the sky. He spoke in a deep voice, and there was a confused look in his eyes. The man was more than 2 meters tall. He had a strong back and a strong waist. His face was chiseled, and he had short white hair. Although he was wearing a simple gray robe, he gave off an imposing aura as he stood there. This man was the current sect master of the Clear Sky sect, Tang Xiao. The other Doluo of the Clear Sky sect was called Xiao Tian. Brother Xiao, we're the #1 sect on the continent. How much longer do we have to live like this? Let's find Brother Hao. We've been in seclusion for too long. It's time for the outside world to recognize our sect. I don't believe that the Martial Soul Hall can do anything to us. The person who spoke was a graceful and elegant beautiful woman. At first glance, she seemed to be 27 or 28 years old. However, Her eyes seemed to have seen through everything in the world. She was definitely not someone a 27 or 28-year-old woman could compare to. Do you miss him? Tang Xiao looked at the other side of the mountain. But who knows where he is? Has he gotten over Little Silver's death? On the other side. Outside the pontiff's palace at the headquarters of the Marshal's Soul Hall. Bibi Dong's face was gloomy. In front of her, the higher-ups of the pontiff's palace stood respectfully. Why haven't you mentioned such a person to me? Is the Marshal Soul Hall's intelligence network a bunch of trash? Bibi Dong's cold gaze swept across the higher-ups. It wasn't hard to hear the anger in her voice. This. The higher-ups looked at each other, and no one dared to say anything. What are you all still standing here for? Hurry up and bring me this person's information as soon as possible. Bibi Dong shouted. Then, she walked into the pontiff's palace with her scepter. After returning to the pontiff's palace, Bibi Dong sat cross-legged on a jade bed. Then, she closed her eyes and started to meditate. 2 days later, Bibi Dong slowly opened his eyes and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. At this moment, her eyes were completely blood-red. The bright red color made it seem as if blood would drip out at any time. On each of her fingers, there were 5-inch-long, pitch-black fingernails. They formed a stark contrast with her fair skin. Her originally noble and beautiful face now looked horribly distorted. There were even streaks of blood on her face. Behind her, there was a black shadow that couldn't be seen clearly. As a layer of black and purple light surged, Bibi Dong's ferocious expression eased. However, her face still looked a little pale. If you don't kill me, it will be the most regrettable thing you've ever done in your life. A terrifying cry like that of an owl reverberated in the hall. The moment Bibi Dong's voice fell, the huge shadow behind him abruptly swelled to twice its original size. In the Holy Spirit Village, Chu Bei was lying in a rocking chair. He looked at the All Heavens shop's reputation value on the system panel with his brows furrowed. He had been on the Doluo continent for several days, but the system's evaluation of the All Heavens shop's reputation was only 7. It wasn't even 10. This number was still far from the 95 reputation value needed to unlock rank 11 merchandise. After a few days of observation, Chu Bei roughly determined that the system's evaluation of reputation value wasn't just about hearing about the All Heavens shop. At the very least, one had to have a deep understanding of it. The problem he was facing now was that the Doluo continent was too big, and there were too few rank 1 and rank 2 agents. Moreover, there was a sales limit. For this reason, it was very difficult to increase his reputation value in a short period of time. The host's Dochi continent's cultivation conversion progress is 100%. Rank 1 and Rank 2 agent authority upgrade. At this moment, the system's voice sounded in Chu Bei's mind. Sensing that his soul power had increased again, Chu Bei stretched his body in satisfaction. Now, his cultivation on the Dochi continent was completely connected with that on the Doluo continent. If measured by the Doluo continent's soul power, he was now a rank 99 limit Doluo. When Chu Bei finished looking at the shop's rank 1 and rank 2 agent authority upgrades, the worry on his face instantly disappeared. Whether it was rank 1 or rank 2 agents, after the upgrade, he had the right to choose a location and establish a branch. Moreover, in addition to being able to sell lucky boxes, he could also directly select goods from the All Heavens shop and sell them according to the system's price. There was no sales limit. Of course, the price of the goods sold was also determined by the agent's own strength. What a kind system! Chu Bei sighed from the bottom of his heart. Especially the unlimited sales limit, it was deeply engraved in his heart. Although the highest rank of a rank 1 agent's goods was rank 9, and the highest rank of a rank 2 agent's goods was rank 8, this upper limit was completely enough. Looking at the entire continent, how many people needed rank 10 goods? Calming his excited heart, Chu Bei used his divine thought to summon all the rank 1 and rank 2 agents. After a long while, above Chu Bei's location, strands of ripples undulated. Following that, one figure after another walked out with a void sound transmission stone. In less than 3 minutes, all 90 Rank 2 agents had arrived. Oscar, Xiao Wu, Dai Mubai, Tang San, Wang Fan, Ning Rongrong, Ma Hongjun, Yu Xiaojing, Zhu Zhuqing, and the other 10 Rank 1 agents, including Tang Qin, were all gathered in front of Chu Bei. Chapter 218. Boss, why did you call us here? In the Holy Soul Village, a group of second-rank agents who had rushed over looked at Chu Bei in confusion. Oscar, Dai Mubai, and the other first-rank agents were also puzzled. I called all of you here to increase your authority as an agent. After speaking calmly, Chu Bei waved his right hand, and a ray of golden light swept across everyone. Instantly, a stream of information flowed into every agent's mind. At the same time, the agent rings and bracelets in their hands underwent slight changes. After a long time. Boss, do you mean that we can have our own branch now? We can have a city each? After sorting out the information in their minds, all the agents were excited. Chu Bei nodded slightly, then his gaze landed on Dai Mubai. Mubai, you'll be in charge of Star Luo Imperial City. After speaking, Chu Bei turned to Oscar. Oscar, you'll be in charge of Heaven Do Imperial City. Xiao Wu, you'll be in charge of Great Star Do Forest. Tang San, you'll be in charge of Great Plant Forest. Wan Fan, you'll be in charge of Nodding City. Yu Xiaojing, you'll be in charge of Soto City. Tang Qin, you'll be in charge of Sea God's Island. Chu Bei's loud voice reverberated in the Holy Soul Village. According to the plan, Chu Bei divided the entire Doluo continent into close to 100 plots, and assigned an agent to each plot. During the transaction process, if you encounter any problems, you can help each other through the Void Sound Transmission Stone. If you really can't solve it, I'll be there personally. After assigning the slots, Chu Bei swept his gaze across the agents. We'll definitely manage the branches well and make the All Heaven shop famous. All the agents were excited. Since that's the case, let's gather today. From tomorrow onwards, head to the places I've assigned and set up branches. Chu Bei smiled. In just a short moment, the entire Holy Soul Village became extremely lively again. All the agents were competing to discuss the transactions in the past 2 days. Boss, if you're free, you can make a trip to Sea God's Island. The people there only believe in the Sea God and are very xenophobic. It won't be easy to set up a branch. Tang Qin cupped his fist towards Chu Bei before turning into a rainbow and flying away. Boss, is that person also a first-class agent? When did you sign it? Dai Mubai, Oscar, Ning Rongrong, and the rest looked at Chu Bei as they watched Tang Chen's departing figure. He was once the king of slaughter and a rank 99 limit Doluo. Before Chu Bei could speak, Xiao Wu, who was at the side, spoke first. Moreover, what else does he have? He is third brother's great-grandfather. King of Slaughter. Ultimate Doluo. Great-grandfather. After hearing what Xiao Wu said, Dai Mubai, Oscar, and the rest focused their gazes on Tang San. Their mouths were agape and their faces were filled with astonishment. Boss, is he going to the Sea God's Island? Yu Xiaojing probed. Is there a second Sea God's Island? Chu Bei laughed. Sea God's Island? What kind of place is that? Wang Fan, Tang San, Oscar, and the rest raised their heads in confusion. Chu Bei glanced at Yu Xiaojing and gave him a look, indicating that he should tell these newbies what he knew. Yu Xiaojing nodded, then his gaze landed on Tang San, Oscar, and the rest. Although the Sea God's Island is an island, you can treat it as a soul beast forest that is isolated from the mainland. There were many strange soul beasts and soul masters living in that place. When the Martial Spirit Hall accidentally discovered the existence of this island, they sent 2,000 soul masters to this island to try and recruit the soul masters there. In the end, more than half of them never returned, and less than 100 of them returned alive. Among them, 2 titled Doluo died there forever. Because of this, the Martial Spirit Hall called it the Demonic Island. As for why it's called the Sea God's Island, it's because the soul masters living there call themselves the Children of the Sea, and they believe in an ancestor who calls himself the Sea God. After that failure, the Martial Spirit Hall didn't dare to have any ideas about the Sea God's Island. It's said that there's a peak-level Doloa on the Sea God's Island, just like the great consecrator of the Martial Spirit Hall, Qian Daolu. Yu Xiaojing tidied up the memories in his mind and told the 7 little fellows about the Sea God's Island. Uncle Gang, is everyone on the Sea God's Island a soul master? And the Sea God you mentioned, is he really a god? Is he also on the island? Tang San asked with a curious look in his eyes. That's right, and according to my conservative estimate, there are at least 3,000 people on the island. When I went to the Sea God's Island, I heard about the existence of the Sea God from them many times. Yu Xiaojing looked at Tang San and replied, Since you're so curious about the Sea God's Island, come with me and see for yourself. Chu Bei smiled. The reason why he wanted to go to the sea was to find a second-tier agent. According to the system, although the vast sea wasn't within the scope of one's reputation, it could be used as an additional bonus. For example, if the All Heavens shop's reputation on the Doloa continent reached 85, and the additional reputation in the sea reached 10, the total would be 95, and the mission would be considered completed. Boss, you're going to the Sea God's Island? Yu Xiaojing was flabbergasted. While I'm broadening the horizons of these little fellows, I'm also going to train on the island, Chu Bei said. Boss, the Sea God's Island is indeed a good place to train. However, the Sea God's Island also has a rule. Once you pass the training, you'll have to become a soul master there and can't leave the Sea God's Island for the rest of your life. If these little fellows really pass the training, are you going to forcefully bring them out of the island? Thinking about Chu Bei's strength, Yu Xiaojing couldn't help but add, Boss, although you're strong, the Sea God's Island is the territory of sea soul masters. On the sea, even a sea soul Doloa can kill a tidal Doloa on land. If you really use force, let's not talk about whether the legendary sea god really exists, just the peak-level Doloa on the island won't be easy to deal with. Why? Do you not believe in my strength? Chu Bei looked at Yu Xiaojing mockingly. He was smiling, and there was confidence between his brows. Meeting Chu Bei's gaze, Yu Xiaojing was stunned. He wanted to say something, but stopped. After a long while, Yu Xiaojing took out an object that was about a foot long from his soul tool. It was shaped like a shuttle, with a dragon's head at the front and a fishtail at the back. There were 4 fin-like wings on both sides of the object. It was milky white, as if it was carved from jade. From time to time, it would emit strange energy undulations. Boss, this is the Dragon Abyss boat. It's also known as the Conqueror of the Seas. I got it by luck. Yu Xiaojing caressed the Dragon Abyss boat. Uncle Gang, you said it's the Conqueror of the Seas? But it's so small. Ning Rongrong couldn't help but use her finger to draw a circle in the air. Don't be fooled by its appearance. After speaking, Yu Xiaojing threw his right hand. The palm-sized object suddenly enlarged, and became a huge object that was about 12 meters long and 2 meters wide at its thickest part. It can hold almost 20 people at the same time. It can go up and down in the sea. It can sail on the surface of the sea, and it can also dive into the sea. With it, you don't have to be afraid of any wind or waves. Even if the wind or waves are too strong, you can immediately dive into the deep sea. It's a treasure boat blessed by nature. Yu Xiaojing was proud as he introduced the Dragon Abyss boat. Oceanic City was located at the westernmost part of the Doloa continent. It was a city that bordered the sea. Standing at the Oceanic Pier, there were hundreds of ships docked there. This was the starting and ending point of the sea trade. It was also a huge source of income for the entire Oceanic City. Living by the sea had long become the unchanging truth of Oceanic City. Boss, this is the first time I've seen the sea. It's magnificent. Ning Rongrong stood at the side of the pier. She opened her arms and felt the sea breeze. Her face was filled with excitement. Oscar, Dai Mubai, Xiao Wu and the rest were also excited. Their expressions were indescribably carefree. Like Ning Rongrong, it was their first time embracing the sea. It had to be said that the scenery of the sea couldn't be replaced by any other scenery. If one hadn't truly been to the sea, they would never be able to experience that magnificent feeling. The sea stretched as far as the eye could see. In the distance, the sea met the sky. Layers of rolling waves were like the pure white clouds in the sky. Under the sunlight, the surface of the sea sparkled. "Boss, are we going to set off now?" Yu Xiaojiang looked at Chu Bei. After seeing the latter nod, he waved his hand and the Dragon Abyss boat appeared on the sea. Soon, Chu Bei and the rest boarded the Dragon Abyss boat and sailed on the sea. On the deck, Yu Xiaojiang looked in the direction they were going. He was worried about something. But looking at Chu Bei's back, he swallowed the words he wanted to say. Xiao Wu, Ning Rongrong, Zhu Zhuqing, and the rest were happily feeding the seagulls. It was as if they were on a vacation. As time passed. "Boss, something seems to be happening in front." Suddenly, Ma Hongjun cried out. In front of them, several large boats, similar to the Dragon Abyss boat, were flying towards them. To be more precise, it was more appropriate to use the word fleeing to describe it. There were 3 to 5 people standing at the bow of each boat. All of them had soul rings flickering on their bodies. Those with higher cultivations had 6 soul rings, and those with lower cultivations had 4 soul rings. "Turn around, quickly turn around! The deep-sea demons are here!" A man on a large boat was the first to notice Chu Bei and the rest. He circulated his soul power and shouted loudly. His voice was filled with fear. "Don't just stand there, quickly leave! If you don't, you'll lose your life! Damn it, I shouldn't have listened to you guys. I shouldn't have taken this route where the deep-sea demons often appear." Another person on a large boat shouted at Chu Bei and the rest. There was no lack of regret in his voice. However, just as these people's fearful voices sounded, the sky above the sea distorted strangely. In the next moment, the Dragon Abyss boat shook violently. If not for Yu Xiaojiang raising the boat's hull in time, Ning Rongrong, Zhu Zhuqing, and the rest would have been thrown into the sea. Chapter 219. Buzz! 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 In the boundless sea, the seawater roared and churned like a ferocious beast that was about to devour its prey. Accompanied by a deafening explosion, the ship that was at the back of the group was thrown into the air. The ship, which was almost 100 meters long and covered in armor, was smashed into pieces by the terrifying impact. Amidst the miserable cries, one could vaguely see flesh and blood flying everywhere. It was extremely frightening. Even though they were a few meters away and were still in the Dragon Abyss ship, Tang San, Dai Mubai, and the rest still felt dizzy from the strong impact. Their heads were throbbing with pain. Whoosh! The seawater roared, and the waves surged. Below the ship that was smashed into pieces, a thick water pillar that was dozens of meters in diameter shot up into the sky. Under everyone's horrified gazes, a huge body that was like a small island slowly floated up from the water. The surrounding seawater was covered in a layer of dense blue light, as if it was the blue sky. "Deep-sea demon, it's really the deep-sea demon! Why would it appear here? We're clearly very far from its territory. I didn't expect that my first time out to sea would be my last. Goddess of Destiny, are you playing with me?" When a corner of the huge creature appeared, the numerous ships stopped moving forward. The people on the ships seemed to have given up on escaping. Their eyes were filled with fear, and they looked like they were about to die. They knew that they couldn't escape. No matter how hard they tried, it would be a waste of energy. According to what they knew, only 2 people had survived after being targeted by the deep-sea demon. One was the legend of the Sea God's Island, and the religion of the Sea God's Island, the Sea God's Lord. The other was the current great consecrator of the Sea God's Island, the pinnacle Dolo Bose Saishi. I actually encountered it. What a misfortune! Looking at the huge creature in front of him, Yu Xiaojiang shook his head and laughed at himself. "Uncle Gang, you know this super big fellow?" Tang San, Dai Mubai, and the rest looked at Yu Xiaojing. The king of the aquatic soul beasts, the deep-sea demon whale king. Yu Xiaojing took a deep breath and spoke with a heavy tone. Buzz! 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 A low roar came from the churning waves, and a huge sound wave. Under the influence of these sound waves, the weaker people on the ships were directly shaken to the point of fainting. Boom! With a loud bang, the huge body under the sea completely floated to the surface. Just by looking at its body, it was already more than 200 meters long. Its entire body was the color of sapphire, and there were 2 huge eyes with a diameter of over 3 meters on its head. The one on the left seemed to have been pierced by a sharp weapon into a black hole, while the right eye was in perfect condition and was coldly scanning the ships with a cold gaze. With a slight movement of its body, its huge tail was raised from its back. With a twisted blue light, it fiercely slapped the surface of the sea. Instantly, hundreds of millions of water droplets soared into the sky. Every drop was like a sharp arrow, piercing through the void and creating sonic booms. Is this the overlord of the sea? Oscar, Dai Mubai, and the others stared ahead with their mouths and eyes wide open. They were different from the soul cultivators on the other ships. There was no fear in their eyes, only shock and astonishment, because they had something to rely on. Uncle Gang, how old is this soul beast? Xiao Wu looked at Yu Xiaojing and asked. At least 100,000 years. Yu Xiaojing's expression was grave. He let out a long breath and said, When the Martial Soul Hall landed on Sea God's Island, a rank 94 titled Dolua took the lead. However, before he reached Sea God's Island, he was sent back to the scene of his death. He was killed by this deep-sea devil whale king. Boss brought us straight from Oceanic City to Sea God's Island, and we had to pass through this deep-sea overlord's territory. Who would have thought that it would appear before we reached its territory? After saying that, Yu Xiaojing shook his head and sighed. His gaze landed on Chu Bei's straight back. Right now, if his boss couldn't stop this deep-sea devil whale king, not only the ships in front, but even they wouldn't be able to escape this calamity. It killed a rank 94 titled Dolu? Xiao Wu caught the key point. To be precise, it was an instant kill. That titled Doloa from the Martial Soul Hall didn't even have time to resist before he was killed. Yu Xiaojing added. What? An instant kill of a titled Dolu? It wasn't just Xiao Wu. Dai Mubai, Ning Rongrong, and the rest all sucked in a breath of cold air. They looked at the deep-sea devil whale king with fear in their eyes. In terms of strength, a rank 94 titled Dolua was equivalent to 100,000-year soul beast. However, this deep-sea devil whale king was able to kill a rank 94 titled Dolua in an instant. It must have cultivated for more than 100,000 years. You don't have to look at me like that. I don't know exactly how many years it has been. Yu Xiaojing shrugged when he met Xiao Wu, Dai Mubai, and the rest's questioning gazes. It has cultivated for more than 300,000 years. However, due to its continuous devouring, it has cultivated for more than 990,000 years. At this moment, a calm voice rang out. What? 990,000 years? Xiao Wu, Dai Mubai, Tang San, and the rest, including Yu Xiaojing, were all shocked when they heard this voice. They all looked at Chu Bei in astonishment. Chu Bei calmly sized up the deep-sea devil whale king and said, In terms of cultivation, it's not weaker than a rank 99 peak Dolu. Boss, you're still as calm as ever. Even in the sea, you shouldn't be weaker than this deep-sea devil whale king. Yu Xiaojing stared at Chu Bei and tried to probe him. What do you think? Chu Bei crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at Yu Xiaojing with interest. Whoosh! Whoosh! Before Yu Xiaojing could reply, the sea in front of them churned violently again. The sound of the surging waves was frightening. Trespassers, die! Suddenly, a demonic voice that seemed to come from hell drifted in the air and clearly entered everyone's ears. When they heard this voice, the hearts of the sea soul masters on the huge ship sank to the bottom. As the cold syllables sounded, the blue seawater around the deep-sea devil whale king instantly became as black as ink. The unparalleled pressure caused the air to solidify. In the next moment, the huge tail that was more than 50 meters long slammed down on the ships on the surface of the sea, including the Dragon Abyss boat that Chubei and the rest were on. Wherever the huge tail passed, the void seemed to be imprisoned. The churning sea below suddenly calmed down. At this moment, everything seemed to be still. Only the huge tail of the deep-sea devil whale king and the huge blue pillar of light that was more than 100 meters in diameter were left. I don't want to die, but I have no choice now. If reincarnation really exists in this world, I won't be a member of the sea in my next life. What joy is there in life? What bitterness is there in death? It's just a dream. Lord Sea God, if you really exist, please descend and save your people. Looking at the huge tail that covered the sky above, some of the sea soul masters on the ships had remorse in their eyes, some were relieved and began to laugh at themselves, and some were praying in fear. Boom! However, when everyone closed their eyes and waited for death, a deafening roar sounded in their ears. This sound was like the sound of a heavy object crashing into a hard rock. After a long time, the group of sea soul masters found that they were still conscious and slowly opened their eyes with confusion. Hiss! When they saw the scene above their heads, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Then, their expressions changed from confusion, to surprise, to puzzlement, and finally to excitement. They saw a huge energy hand that was 1,000 meters long above their heads, blocking the terrifying blow of the deep-sea devil whale king for them. Looking down from above, the huge tail of the deep-sea devil whale king was smashed on the palm of the giant hand and couldn't move down anymore. Lord Sea God, it must be Lord Sea God. Yes, the giant hand above must be Sea God's masterpiece. He's protecting us. Sea God really exists. With him here, we don't have to die. The Sea Soul Masters, who had accepted their fate and were ready to die, were stunned when they saw the giant energy hand above their heads. After they reacted, they became excited. Mere human, are you challenging the majesty of this king? The roar released by the deep-sea devil whale king was so loud that it was full of penetrating power. In this long roar, the calm sea water violently surged again. The group of sea soul masters came back to their senses and followed the gaze of the deep-sea devil whale king. It was an object not far from them that looked like a ship but was not a ship. It's them! The pupils of the sea soul masters on two of the ships shrank and couldn't help but exclaim out loud. In any case, they didn't expect that the person who saved them was not the sea god that they believed in, but the group of people that they asked to turn around and flee together. How could it be? Wasn't it Sea God who saved us? He saved us? Is he from the Sea God's island? Other than the Sea God, how could anyone save us from this devil? Look at the light extending from his palm, isn't that connected to the giant hand above our heads? In short, no matter who he is our savior now. Is he a titled Doluo? But he looks so unfamiliar. If you don't want to die, leave quickly. Even if you want to watch the battle, stay away. Just when the group of Sea Soul Masters was looking at Chubei in surprise, Chubei's indifferent voice sounded in their ears. Hearing this, these Sea Soul Masters didn't hesitate at all. After casting a grateful look at Chubei, they controlled the ship and quickly left. Their faces were filled with joy. Although the ship was far away, these Sea Soul Masters' eyes still didn't leave the Dragon Abyss ship that Chubei was on. I thought I would have to look for you, but I didn't expect you to send yourself here. You really saved me a lot of time. Chubei rose into the air and looked at the deep-sea devil whale king. It was the second-rank agent he was looking for. Chapter 220. Above the churning sea, Chubei floated above the deep-sea monster whale king. Compared to the deep-sea monster whale king's 200-meter body, Chubei seemed particularly small. However, the aura he released was not weaker than the deep-sea monster whale king. You said you were looking for me? The deep-sea monster whale king coldly stared at Chubei and snorted. It had been roaming the sea for nearly 1,000,000 years. Whether it was sea spirit beasts or soul masters, they all avoided it at first sight. However, this human in front of it actually took the initiative to look for it. This was a great humiliation for it. Boom! The deep-sea monster whale king didn't even ask Chu Bei why he was looking for it. It directly roared with monstrous anger, and a 10-meter diameter blue beam suddenly broke through the sea without warning. In almost an instant, it broke through the void and arrived in front of Chu Bei. "Are you in such a hurry?" Chu Bei shook his head. At the same time, he sensed the energy contained in the blue beam. There was only a small amount of soul power mixed in it, but more of an inexplicable power that seemed to come from the depths of the sea. Seeing that the blue beam was about to hit Chu Bei raised his hand and a gorgeous multicolored flame appeared in front of him. There were 22 fire spirits jumping in the sea of flames. These multicolored flames were the 22 heavenly flames that Chu Bei had fused in the Do-Chi continent. Chi. Before the blue beam could reach Chu Bei, it was burned into nothingness by the multicolored flames. The deep-sea monster whale king let out a puzzled sound. Its ocean light beam was not afraid of any flames, but now it was burned into nothingness by the strange flames of the other party. Boom! The deep-sea monster whale king seemed to be somewhat unconvinced. Its giant tail swung, and the sea became even more turbulent. Layer after layer of waves stacked together, more than 10 meters high. Amidst the crashing of the waves, huge waterspouts emerged from the seawater around Chu Bei and blasted towards Chu Bei from all directions at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, these waterspouts containing terrifying sea energy swallowed Chu Bei. "A mere human, even if you have a peak doluo, you are far from being my opponent in the sea." However, the deep-sea monster whale king's complacent words had not yet spread out. Its huge single eye was a strange look, as if it had seen something inconceivable. These waterspouts that could extinguish tens of thousands of square meters of flames were not only unable to extinguish the multicolored flames, but they were also completely evaporated by the latter's blazing heat. When all waterspouts disappeared, the sea monster whale king was still, not moving. There was a faint smile on his slightly raised lips, and he looked at it with a teasing gaze. "Damned human, what's with that look?" Looking at the playful expression on Chu Bei's face, the deep-sea demonic whale king was furious. It swung its huge tail and smashed it into the sea, creating a path to the heavens. Sea monster whale king roared, and the nearby sea soul beasts fled in panic. Some sea soul beasts that had cultivated for tens of thousands of years and possessed intelligence floated to the surface far away. They stared at Chu Bei, as if they were sizing up this man who dared to anger their king. "Let me see how strong you are." Chu Bei stretched out his hand and waved at the deep-sea monster whale king provocatively. "Roar!" With a roar, the deep-sea monster whale king's huge body suddenly turned over in the sea. A layer of dark blue light lingered around its huge tail, and it slapped towards Chu Bei in the air. Wherever its huge tail passed, bluish-purple lightning would be dazzling, and the terrifying energy would forcibly tear the void apart. This time, the deep-sea monster whale king did not borrow the power of the sea. Instead, it used its own body's energy to launch a pure attack. Chu Bei was no longer just defending. With a wave of his right hand, the colorful flames around him surged and turned into a huge spear. In the next moment, Chu Bei held the tail end of the flaming spear in his hand. With himself as the center, the spear drew a large circle in the air, and then fiercely swung it to meet the deep-sea magic whale king's huge tail, which was surrounded by a deep blue light. Under several gazes, the energy from the whale's tail violently collided with the flaming spear thrown by Chu Bei. Suddenly, the light above the sea suddenly dimmed. Under such a terrifying collision, there was not the slightest sound. It was terrifyingly silent. However, just when everyone thought that the terrifying energy contained in the two sides cancelled each other out, the flaming spear that was originally stagnant suddenly brought a burst of sound. "Chi-la!" The gorgeous flame cut through the sky and pierced through the deep-sea monster whale king's huge tail, bringing with it a large amount of dark red blood and a sizzling sound of burning. In an instant, the blue sea was dyed red with blood. Almost at the same time, the deep-sea monster whale king's miserable and painful wails spread through the void. It was chilling to hear. The wails were accompanied by a huge pressure. The sea spirit beasts who were watching in the distance were frightened and retreated a few hundred meters. One by one, they sank into the sea and only revealed their small heads to continue watching. He actually injured that demon. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe that there is someone in this world who can make that demon bleed. What is this person's background? Looking at the direction he came from, he should be from Oceanic City. Is he from the mainland? To be able to injure this demon, his strength is at least at the same level as the great consecrator of the sea god's island. It is said that there are 2 Pic Doloa in the mainland. One is Tangchen of the Clear Sky sect, and the other is Qian Lu of the Martial Soul Palace. Could he be one of them? The ship that was previously far away stopped moving forward. The sea spirit masters stood on the deck and stared at the battle between Chu Bei and the deep-sea monster whale king. When they saw that the deep-sea monster whale king was beaten to a pulp, they were all shocked. Boss is indeed invincible. On the Dragon Abyss ship, Dai Mubai, Oscar, Ning Rongrong, and the others shouted excitedly. Their eyes were shining, especially when they saw that Chu Bei's spear had pierced the deep-sea monster whale king. They couldn't help but sway and cheer. Their excited appearance made it seem as if they had injured the deep-sea monster whale king. This is a 990,000-year-soul beast. Looking at Chu Bei's back in the sky, Yu Xiaojing couldn't help but murmur. Now, he was certain of the guess in his heart. God, the other party is a god who has surpassed the Pic Doluo. A living god! Is your strength okay? Looking at the huge bloody hole in the deep-sea monster whale king's tail, Chu Bei nodded in satisfaction. The spear just now was based on his own strength and the support of the 22 types of mysterious fires. It was even able to fight against a Do Di for a short period of time. Human, you indeed have some strength. No wonder you dared to provoke this king. The deep-sea monster whale king's single eye had already turned blood red. It locked onto Chu Bei and said in an incomparably cold voice, "How many tens of thousands of years has it been? This king has already forgotten the taste of blood. Die, you must die. Even if the sea god comes, he can't save you." Amidst the cold voice that was filled with dense killing intent, a layer of purple-red light appeared on the deep-sea monster whale king's tail. Under the illumination of the light, the huge bloody hole healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chu Bei didn't think much of this ability of the deep-sea monster whale king. Even the 100,000-year soul beast Death Spider Emperor had a life-saving skill, let alone this million-year deep-sea monster whale king. Human, you are very lucky because you will be the second person in these tens of thousands of years to make me use my true strength. The deep-sea monster whale king stared at Chu Bei with its single eye. Do million-year soul beasts talk so much when fighting? Chu Bei shrugged. You really deserve to die. Hearing Chu Bei's words, the deep-sea monster whale king's huge body suddenly trembled in anger. After forcefully suppressing the anger in its heart, the deep-sea monster whale king's huge tail slapped the surface of the sea once again, setting off monstrous waves while its body suddenly rose from the sea. What was astonishing was that after its huge body rose into the air, it actually hovered there and didn't fall back into the sea. Roar! Accompanied by the roar, an incomparably huge amount of energy erupted from the deep-sea monster whale king's head. Suddenly, a little bit of blue-green light rose from the boundless sea. These blue-green light spots consciously gathered towards the deep-sea monster whale king, and more gathered. After a while, a blue layer formed around the deep-sea monster whale king's huge body. Looking up again at the sky above the deep-sea monster whale king's head, the azure sky became filled with rolling dark clouds. Amidst the crackling sounds, 9 huge lightning bolts as thick as water tanks descended and surrounded the deep-sea monster whale king's body. It turns out that in addition to the water attribute, It also has the thunder attribute. Interesting. Chu Bei crossed his arms in front of his chest and didn't rush to attack. He wanted to see what this deep-sea monster whale king was going to do. Gradually, the deep-sea monster whale king's skin seemed to condense a layer of blue-purple crystal. At the same time, its huge body began to shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye. Along with that, the blue light wrapping around the surface of its body also crazily compressed. When the blue-purple light completely converged, the 200-meter-long deep-sea monster whale king disappeared. What appeared in Chu Bei's field of vision was a simple middle-aged man. Compared to Chu Bei, this middle-aged man's figure was relatively huge. He was more than 5 meters tall, and had long dark blue hair draped over his back. The middle-aged man was wearing a strange dark purple armor. The armor appeared to be in a crystalline state. It was composed of a breastplate, shoulder plate, belly plate, battle skirt, and forelimbs. His whole body was integrated without any gaps. The most peculiar thing was that there was a fist-sized gem in front of the middle-aged man's chest. This gem was releasing a dark blue light, and was flickering with revolving energy. This gem seemed to have an inseparable connection with the sea, because 1 or 2 blue light spots would rise from the sea below and enter the gem from time to time. It actually turned into a human form. Maybe we are the first batch of people to live to see a demon in human form. Wrong, those who died probably didn't see this demon in human form. When we return to the city, I can brag about it for 3 days. Haha, it's all thanks to this mysterious expert that we were able to broaden our horizons. The group of Sea Soul Masters stared blankly at the middle-aged man facing Chu Bei in the distant sky. The shock in their eyes was even more intense. On the Dragon Abyss boat, Dai Mubai, Oscar, and the others were dumbfounded. This was the first time they saw a soul beast in human form. Only Xiao Wu's expression was relatively calm because she was 100,000-year soul beast. This is an energy armor. Witnessing the transformation of the deep-sea devil whale king in the sky, Yu Xiaojing first frowned, then his expression changed and he couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Energy armor? Uncle Gang, what are you talking about? Sensing the change in Yu Xiaojing's expression, Dai Mubai and Ning Rongrong couldn't help but ask. It has already reached the realm of a god. I once read an ancient book in the Martial Spirit Palace, and there was a description of gods in it. It was said that every person who became a god at rank 100 could fuse external energy with their body and form a divine armor when they became a god. At that time, I didn't think much of it, but now that I see this scene in front of me, I'm afraid that there was a true god in the Martial Spirit Palace before. Although this deep-sea demonic whale king can't do that, it can only transform its energy into armor and can't completely fuse with its body. However, it's only a step away. Yu Xiaojing said faintly. It's only a step away, it's good that it hasn't completely become a god. Hearing Yu Xiaojing's words, Tang San, Dai Mubai, and the others were relieved. It was as if a stone hanging in their hearts had been put down, and they continued to look at the battlefield in the sky. At the same time, Sea God's Palace on the Sea God's Island. Lan Mei, what happened in the sea? This energy, what the hell is that deep-sea devil doing? The red-robed woman sitting on the main seat of the main hall suddenly opened her eyes, and her beautiful eyebrows knitted. The woman's whole body was covered in a layer of bright red robe, and her sea-blue long hair was draped over her back. Her gentle and beautiful face seemed to be at most 30 years old. In her right hand she was holding a 3-meter-long golden scepter. Looking carefully, the whole scepter was engraved with azure patterns, just like the color of the sea, and the head of the scepter had a rhombus protrusion like a spear. Great Consecrator, I will go to the sea to investigate. A woman wearing a blue gauze dress bowed to the red-robed woman, and quickly left the main hall. In the sky above the sea, the deep-sea devil whale king in human form and Chu Bei were facing each other from a distance, and their gazes didn't give way to each other. The deep-sea devil whale king's eyebrows were filled with dense killing intent, while Chu Bei crossed his arms in front of his chest. His calm posture made it seem as if he was waiting for the deep-sea devil whale king's attack. A terrifying aura spread out from the deep-sea devil whale king's body. What surprised it was that under its pressure, the man opposite it didn't move in the slightest. Moreover, the other party's faintly discernible aura was even stronger than its own. "Human, go to hell!" Unable to gain the upper hand in terms of aura, the deep-sea devil whale king bellowed. It suddenly raised its right hand, and purple light balls swept out from the sea below. In just a split second, they densely covered an area of several hundred square meters. Chapter 221. On the battlefield, every ball of light shot out by the deep-sea demon whale king was consciously locked onto Chu Bei. The huge energy fluctuation immediately turned the sky purple and distorted crazily. These purple balls of light mixed with the power of water and thunder only took a breath's time from condensing to shooting out. "Don't use these fancy attacks. It's just a waste of time for me. Take out your strongest attack and end it quickly. I still have something to say to you." As his calm voice faded, Chu Bei pointed out a finger. Then, from the colorful flames around him, numerous fire snakes appeared and shot out in all directions. In an ear-piercing sound, the thousands of purple balls condensed by the deep-sea demon whale king were annihilated by the fire snakes like a meteor shower. The speed was so fast that it could only be described as lightning. "Damn it!" Seeing that its attack was destroyed again, the deep-sea demon whale king frowned. Meeting Chu Bei's disdainful gaze again, the deep-sea demon whale king's face twisted with hatred. Then, as if it had made a difficult decision, the sapphire blue light on its chest bloomed. Rings of light rippled from its chest. Wherever the blue light passed, the void instantly froze. Suddenly, the deep-sea demon whale king opened its mouth and let out a loud and clear roar. At the same time, a white mist appeared. At first, the deep-sea demon whale king's voice was a little hoarse, but as the white mist spurted out, its voice turned into a dragon's roar. In the next moment, the dark clouds above its head surged crazily. Under everyone's gaze, it turned into a three-clawed divine dragon. "Are my eyes playing tricks on me? It turned into a dragon. There really are dragons in this world. Could it be that the true form of the deep-sea demon whale is not a whale, but a legendary divine dragon?" All the oceanic soul masters were shocked as they looked at the divine dragon that was releasing a monstrous pressure in the sky. Their eyes were filled with fear. On the Dragon Abyss boat, Yu Xiaojing, Tang San, and the others were also stunned. Obviously, this change was too sudden. The deep-sea demon whale king turned into a divine dragon. "It's a pity that you're still a step away from becoming a true dragon." Looking at the three-clawed divine dragon that the demonic whale king had transformed into, Chu Bei shook his head and sighed. "Once I devour you, I will be able to take that final step." The deep-sea demon whale king coldly stared at Chu Bei. Its attacks were again and again neutralized by the opposite party, and it was even injured by the opposite party. It was truly angry. Another dragon roar. The three-clawed dragon that the deep-sea demonic whale king had transformed into was suffused with blood-red light, like a volcano that was about to erupt. At this moment, the sea and the void seemed to have been frozen. The group of Sea Soul Masters, as well as Tang San, Dai Mubai, and the others on the Dragon Abyss ship, realized that they had lost control of their bodies. The sound of the outside world seemed to have been completely isolated by that enormous energy, and the only thing they could hear was the sound of their own heartbeats. In his line of sight, all that was left was the three-clawed divine dragon wrapped in blood-red light, as well as the gigantic multicolored staff formed from the monstrous flames. On the surface of the giant staff, there were 22 fire spirits of different forms jumping and tumbling, each releasing a different flaying aura. A dragon and a staff intertwined in the void. Boom! The two destructive energies collided with each other, and with a deafening boom, the void on the battlefield exploded into pieces. Everything in front of everyone's eyes became unreal. The sea level suddenly dropped by 100 meters, and a huge vortex was forcibly suppressed by the surging aftermath of the collision. The 10,000-year soul beasts hiding in the distance could no longer float on the surface of the sea, and all of them dove into the depths. Their hearts trembled, and a terrifying energy made them instinctively afraid, and they couldn't summon the slightest bit of resistance. Boom! The loud sound lasted for a long time. The sky and the sea seemed to have become eternal at this moment. The enormous red and the multicolored light merged together in everyone's line of sight, until it was compressed to a point. Explode! The sound reached a limit. The destructive sound waves caused the sea to roar, and the sea surface within a few hundred square miles rolled and boiled at the same time. A huge tsunami soared into the sky, as if doomsday had arrived. In an instant, the sky darkened, and the dazzling sunlight could no longer be seen. There was only a black and red light. The terrifying energy fluctuations were not only felt by the group of sea soul masters, but also by the sea god's island, which was hundreds of nautical miles away. The void shattered, and a pitch-black gap appeared, crazily swallowing the energy from the explosion. Before everyone could calm down, a huge red figure flew out from the battlefield, and then heavily smashed into the sea. In an instant, the sea was dyed red, and the pungent smell of blood mixed with the smell of seawater, and with the wind and waves, it filled the tip of everyone's nose. Gulp! Looking at the huge monster rolling in pain in the sea, the eyes of the sea soul masters, Yu Xiaojing, and the others widened, and they instinctively swallowed their saliva out of shock. At this moment, the deep-sea demon whale king had changed back from its dragon form to its whale form. Its huge body was almost broken into two, and it was only connected by the dense white bones. In the sparkling purple light, the broken wound was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye, but it still couldn't stop the blood from gushing out. When he looked at the void again, the colorful staff trembled slightly and disappeared. Chu Bei hovered in the void with his hands behind his back, coldly looking at the wailing deep-sea demon whale king below, and his robes fluttered in the wind. Like a god, he inadvertently revealed the power of looking down on the world, and people couldn't help but feel a sense of worship. Now, can you listen to me properly? Similar words once again exploded in the void like rolling thunder, reverberating on the sea for a long time. Roar! Amidst the wailing, the deep-sea demon whale king looked at Chu Bei in horror. I will arrange a mission for you, and if you do it to my satisfaction, I will help you take the last step and step into the ranks of gods. Chu Bei's dignified voice drifted in the air. Hearing Chu Bei's words, the deep-sea demon whale king was stunned at first, then it endured the pain in its body, and looked at Chu Bei with some expectation. As long as I can become a god, I can do anything. After seeing Chu Bei's means, the deep-sea demon whale king no longer had the slightest arrogance, especially when it heard that the other party would help it step into the ranks of gods. Its words even had a trace of respect. Do your best to let the soul beasts in the sea know the name of the All-Heavens shop and benefit from it. As his voice fell, Chu Bei waved his right hand, and the proxy ring flew to the deep-sea demon whale king. At the same time, a stream of information flowed into the other party's mind. After sorting out the information flow, the deep-sea demon whale king looked at Chu Bei again, and then swung its almost broken giant tail, taking its huge body into the depths of the sea. Wherever it passed, blood was everywhere, and the smell of blood was pungent. Looking at the disappearing deep-sea demon whale king, Chu Bei pointed at the void. Suddenly, the originally collapsed void gradually stabilized, and the roaring sea calmed down again. If it wasn't for the dazzling blood-red sea water, it would be as if nothing had happened. Escaped! That deep-sea demon actually escaped! To be precise, that person should have spared its life. They seem to have reached some kind of agreement. Is a land-based peak Dolua so strong? It's different from the rumors. Isn't it said that land-based soul masters are far inferior to sea soul masters at the same level? Even the great consecrator of the sea god's island could only fight to a draw with this deep-sea demon whale king. Then how did he win? The scary thing is, after watching the battle, I don't even know what his martial soul is. Could it be flames? After a long time, the Sea Soul Masters looked in the direction where the deep-sea demon whale king had gone, and recovered from their shock, each of them staring at Chubei dumbfoundedly. Then, the Sea Soul Masters exchanged glances, and seemed to have come to the same decision. At the same time, they drove the ship back to the Dragon Abyss ship. On the other side, about 10 nautical miles away from the Dragon Abyss ship, a white shark more than 20 meters in size looked at Chubei with fear, and then swung its giant tail and dived into the depths of the sea. Wherever it passed, the sea water was suffused with a white luster. If someone recognized this great white shark, they would definitely exclaim, "Sea God's Island Guardian Battle Beast, 100,000-year-old sea soul beast, one of the 3 overlords of the coastal waters, the demon soul great white shark. Boss, you're really invincible on land and in the sea. In my opinion, even the sea god isn't your opponent." When Chubei landed on the Dragon Abyss ship, Ning Rongrong couldn't help but excitedly run forward and hugged Chubei's arm. Her small face was full of excitement. Chubei patted Ning Rongrong's head and couldn't help but smile. "Boss, may I know what kind of god you are?" Yu Xiaojing asked tentatively, and became cautious. "You'll know in the future." Chubei waved his robe, pretending to be mysterious. Just when Yu Xiaojing wanted to ask more, the sound of crashing waves could be heard, and several huge ships docked around the Dragon Abyss ship. "Thank you for saving us, benefactor." The Sea Soul Master stood on the deck and bowed to Chubei at the same time. "You don't have to thank me. It was convenient." Chubei's expression was indifferent. "Benefactor, may I know if your name is the Martial Spirit Hall's Thousand Dao sect or the Clear Sky sect's Tengqin?" A Soul Emperor hesitated for a moment before asking. "Neither. Boss is the owner of the All Heavens shop." Before Chubei could say anything, Daimubai spoke first. "All Heavens shop?" The Sea Soul Masters frowned, and there was confusion in their eyes. Evidently, they had never heard of this name. "It's normal that you don't know it now, but you'll be familiar with it soon," Daimubai replied. "If there's nothing else, you can leave." Chubei glanced at the Sea Soul Masters indifferently. After speaking, he drove the Dragon Abyss ship towards Sea God's Island. If it's not the Thousand Dao sect or Tangchen, could there be a third peak Dolua in the continent? Let's go back to the city. Let's find out more about this organization called the All Heavens Shop. Looking at the Dragon Abyss ship in the distance, the Sea Soul Masters all walked towards Oceanic City. The battle that they had witnessed today was enough for them to brag about for the rest of their lives. Not long after Chubei and the Sea Soul Masters left, a long rainbow flew over from afar. In the end, it stopped above the sea where Chubei and the deep-sea devil whale king had fought. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.